Chapter 557 Son of the Heavenly Tao, Fiend Celestial in the World. Chapter 557 Son of the Heavenly Tao, Fiend Celestial in the World. Ji Xianxian was frightened by the sudden golden light, and immediately looked up. The heavenly soldiers guarding the South Heaven Gate were on high alert. Ji Xianxian pinched his fingers to deduce with a strange expression. On the other side, in the 100-peak Immortal River, Hanju also opened his eyes. It had been 107 years since Heavenly Venerate Wuxia left. During this period of time, he had been cultivating until he was disturbed by this mysterious aura. What a familiar aura! Hanju muttered to himself and pinched his fingers to deduce. He deduced that a golden light was connecting the world in the west of the immortal world. This golden light shot out from an island volcano into the sky. It was unstoppable. From afar, it was like a miracle. At the bottom of the golden light, a figure squatted in the magma. From the figure, it could be seen that it was a youth. Rank 1 Immortal Emperor. Hanju narrowed his eyes. He had just been born, and he was already an Immortal Emperor? Amazing! Hanju discovered that he couldn't figure out this golden-haired youth's background. He had to use the derivation function to deduce. 5 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? 5 billion years? This was even more impressive than a heavenly Tao sage. Hanju was interested and chose to continue. Tian, Rank 1 Immortal Emperor, Son of the Heavenly Tao, Chaotic Fiend Celestial, the great providence bearer chosen by the Heavenly Tao. He carries the mission of unifying the immortal world. Son of the Heavenly Tao, Chaotic Fiend Celestial. So powerful? Hanju was interested. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. He noticed that many cultivators were flying towards the island, where the sky was being pierced by the golden light. There was even Emperor Zhao's clone, Emperor Chen. Hanju thought for a moment, and sent a voice transmission to Li Daokong, who was on his way back. He asked him to investigate Tian. It depended on Li Daokong's mood, if he wanted to take in a disciple. As for Hanyu, he continued to return with the 1,000 nether zeniths. Hanju thought for a moment, and sent a voice transmission to the 3 pure sacred ancestor to find Tian. He didn't tell Li Daokong about the 3 pure sacred ancestor joining them. The two of them did their own thing, and relied on their own abilities. Li Mui had yet to discover anything unusual with the 3 pure sacred ancestor. After returning, he hadn't even gone to find him. According to the 3 pure sacred ancestor, Li Mui completely used him as a dharma treasure, and would not ask about him usually. Hanju was a sage now, the master of a major force. He couldn't do everything himself. Then he closed his eyes and continued cultivating. So what if he was the son of the Heavenly Tao? If you become my enemy, you will still be destroyed. In the endless sea, islands dotted the surface. Cultivators flew from all directions towards the same island. It was the island where the son of the Heavenly Tao was born. The mysterious golden light had already dissipated. On the island, at the mouth of the volcano, a naked youth crawled out. He was slightly thin, had white hair, eyes like snakes, and a pair of horns that looked like sharp blades on his forehead. The youth looked around in confusion. Born as an immortal emperor. Not bad, not bad. A gentle laugh sounded. The youth turned around and saw Emperor Chen standing by the cliff, smiling at him. The youth was vigilant. Although he didn't know how to speak, he instinctively resisted when facing unfamiliar things. At this moment, mighty cultivators landed on the mountain peak. What race is this? Amazing. I can even see his golden light on the 5th level. His potential is definitely not simple. Even a pseudo-sage is here. Looks like this kid is not someone we can take in. Who doesn't have a powerful background. My senior brother's father's uncle master is also an immortal god of the heavenly race. Did I brag about that? Let's wait and see. There seems to be something wrong with this kid. The cultivators discussed. Being surrounded like this, the white-haired youth was extremely nervous. His gaze swept around, as if looking for a gap to escape. At this moment, golden lotuses scattered down from the sky. It was a spectacular and beautiful sight. This child is fated with me. Everyone disperse. The 3 pure sacred ancestors' voice sounded. It was majestic and shook the world. Everyone turned around, and saw the three pure sacred ancestor walking down the clouds. There seemed to be an invisible staircase beneath his feet. Many cultivators were moved when they saw him. Although they didn't know who the three pure sacred ancestor was, his powerful and unfathomable aura was enough to them. This child is fated with our Buddhist sect. Please give us face. A domineering voice sounded. Following the voice, a 10,000-foot tall golden Buddha crossed the sea. It was unstoppable. Divine Might Buddha! Someone exclaimed in reverence. The leader of the Buddhist sect was a top mighty figure who had experienced the calamity. 90% of the living beings in the world had to call him ancestor. The Divine Might Buddha and the three pure sacred ancestor were about to confront each other. The atmosphere became tense. Outside the 33rd heaven, at the Buddhist sect Tao field, Qiu Shilai's expression darkened. It was unknown what he was thinking. A figure floated in front of him. It was the spirit of the heavenly Tao. You said that you wanted to support me, but now, you've created the son of the heavenly Tao. What do you mean by this? Qiu Shilai asked in a low voice. Seeing Tian appear, he almost died of anger. Even a sage couldn't withstand it. The heavenly Tao spirit said, I can't do anything either. This chaotic fiend celestial was left behind by the Tao ancestor when he left. The heavenly devil calamity caused the heavenly Tao's providence to decline. This chaotic fiend celestial has awakened. I have no choice but to transform it into a son of the heavenly Tao. Only then can I control it. Qiu Shilai frowned, still unhappy. The heavenly Tao hid too many things from him. He suddenly felt that he was a pawn. A son of the heavenly Tao came out now. What about next time? When could he control the heavenly Tao and become a figure like the Tao ancestor? The heavenly Tao spirit said, recently, the hidden sect's providence has increased very quickly. The heavenly race's providence is all focused on the heavenly ancestor, and the heavenly ancestor has karma with Hanju. He must have already joined the hidden sect. You have to be careful. Qiu Shilai said calmly. I understand, but Hanju is too strong. We can't fight him openly. The heavenly Tao spirit vanished. Qiu Shilai waved his right hand, and a screen of light appeared in front of him. In the screen of light, the three pure sacred ancestor was fighting dozens of mighty figures, including Li Daokong and the Divine Might Buddha. Even if he was alone, the three pure sacred ancestor still had the upper hand. He was extremely powerful. Qiushi was envious. If he had the three pure sacred ancestor, wouldn't he have the final say in the immortal world? 10 years later, Hanju opened his eyes and pinched his fingers to deduce. His expression became strange. That son of the heavenly Tao did not follow anyone. Instead, he dominated an island alone and became a king. Li Daokong actually pestered the three pure sacred ancestor and kept chasing after him. The three pure sacred ancestor knew that he was from the hidden sect and had been going easy on him. With Hanju's orders, he couldn't tell the truth and could only fight with Li Daokong. Hanju was speechless. He knew Li Daokong, but he didn't expect him to be so stubborn. He had no choice but to send him a voice transmission asking for him to give up. It's fine, sect master. I have to defeat him. Li Daokong replied in his mind. Hanju rolled his eyes in anger. Forget it. He would let this fellow fight. In any case, it was impossible for him to defeat the three pure sacred ancestor. Although Li Daokong was strong, he had yet to surpass Shurdu Dao. Hanju was about to close his eyes and continue cultivating when he sensed Dao's sovereign approaching. In the current hidden sect, other than Hanju, Li Daokong, and the guards, Dao's sovereign was the strongest disciple. His cultivation had already reached the mid-stage of the Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Realm and was very close to the late stage. Master, there's another newcomer in the chaotic domain. Aren't you going to take a look? Dao's sovereign asked after entering the temple. Chapter 558 Hidden Sect's Internal Affairs Going Beyond. Chapter 558 Hidden Sect's Internal Affairs. Going beyond the newcomer could only be the son of the heavenly Tao Tian. Hanju wasn't interested. He had almost forgotten about the chaotic domain. Usually, Zhou Fan, Dao's sovereign, and Zhao Xinyuan wouldn't go to the chaotic domain. However, the myriad world's projection was very lively. The disciples often communicated with Li Daokong and Hanyu. asking about what was happening in the outside world. Hanju said, "Is that all?" Dao's sovereign hurriedly said, "These two newcomers have very strong potential. In addition, I want to go out and seek opportunities." Two newcomers? Not only Tian, but there was also someone else? Hanju was slightly curious, but he didn't care in the end. "You've reached the pseudo-sage realm?" "No, but you want to go against my will?" No. Terrified, Dao's sovereign hurriedly tried to explain. Hanju said, "I don't want to save you anymore, understand? If you dare to make such a request again, the threshold of leaving the mountain will increase to the sage realm." "I understand. I was rude," Dao's sovereign said helplessly. But Hanju was right. When he recalled the bumpy situation of the previous calamity, his heart still palpitated. "Little brat, you actually want to trick me?" After Dao's sovereign thought it through, he was filled with fear. Hanju waved his hand and gestured for him to leave. After Dao's sovereign left, Hanju still didn't go to the chaotic domain. His gaze landed on Han Tua. This fellow was still cultivating in seclusion. His providence and reputation in the immortal world were weak, and he could be considered nameless. He suddenly had an idea. The appearance of Tian was a whetstone for Han Tua. If he didn't have a powerful enemy in his life, how could he continue forward? Even though Hanju had the system, he would also treat all living beings as formidable enemies and encourage himself. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website MyBox Novel. Thanks. After thinking, Hanju raised his hand and waved a beam of light. It quickly disappeared like lightning. Time passed. Another 300 years passed. While cultivating, Hanju opened his eyes and started to check his emails. Your good friend Evil Heavenly Emperor was attacked by a mysterious mighty figure and was severely injured. Your good friend Xiao Shilai has fused with the Heavenly Dao's providence. His cultivation has increased greatly. Your good friend Li Daokong was attacked by your good friend Three Pure Sacred Ancestor. He was severely injured. Your good friend Shi Dudao has entered the Dark Forbidden Zone. Your good friend Feng Liang was attacked by an unknown space-time power and was severely injured. Your son Han Tuo's bloodline potential has increased. His cultivation has increased greatly. Your good friend Han Ming was cursed by a mysterious curse. Your grand disciple Chu Shuren received your good friend Xiao Shilai's dream. The situation of the emails became complicated. Hanju read it with relish. He noticed that Xiao Shilai had sent a dream to Chu Shuren. What was this old fellow trying to do? Hanju continued to read the emails. An hour later, Hanju called Chu Shuren over. Chu Shuren quickly arrived at the Taoist temple and bowed respectfully. Hanju asked, "How have you been cultivating recently?" Chu Shuren said, "As usual." He hesitated for a moment and said, "You know that Sage Xiao Shilai sent me a dream?" "I don't know." Chu Shuren took a deep breath and said, "Xiao Shilai hopes that I can return to the Buddhist sect." This time, he did not even use the word sage. It could be seen that he had already chosen his side. Hanju said, "Oh, really? What do you think?" Chu Shuren shook his head. "I'm naturally unwilling. If I return to the Buddhist sect, I'll become a pawn again. It's good to be in the hidden sect. You never ask me to do anything against my will. Here, I can still cultivate in peace." Not long ago, he hated cultivating. Now that he was cultivating very actively, he would reach the zenith heaven realm sooner or later. Hanju said, "Cultivate well. You can leave after reaching the pseudo-sage realm. Remember, I don't have many requirements for the hidden sect disciples. However, there is one rule. You are not to betray the hidden sect, and you are not allowed to kill each other. Otherwise, I can take back what I can give you. Under the heavenly Tao, no one can save you if you betray me." Chu Shuren hurriedly bowed to show his loyalty. Hanju didn't say anything else. After leaving the Taoist temple, Chu Shuren heaved a sigh of relief. Grandmaster's ability is really impressive. Even a sage's dream can be detected by him. Xiao Shilai wants to harm me? Chu Shuren thought to himself. As he passed Zhangju, he suddenly opened his eyes and stared at him. Chu Shuren's heart beat wildly. The sage's gaze was filled with pressure. Chu Shuren suddenly realized that other than Hanju, there were other powerful and mysterious existences in the hidden sect. These mysterious existences did not communicate with the disciples, and were only loyal to Hanju. With that thought, Chu Shuren bowed to Zhangju and quickened his pace, leaving hurriedly. This small incident did not cause a stir in the hidden sect. As their cultivation level increased, the hearts of people would also change. Hanju could understand. His current mentality was also very different from when he was weak. His ambitions would also change. However, in the 100-peak Immortal River, all the rules were determined by Hanju. Although these disciples were very respectful, that was only for him. They were all proud and arrogant people. Once they were released, after so many years, they might turn against each other. Back then, even the 3 pure ones under the Tao ancestor could turn against each other. Hanju naturally didn't feel that his disciples would always be united. 62 years later, Han Zueqian came to visit him and asked if he should release another batch of disciples. They were naturally in-name disciples. Recently, he had calculated that another batch of disciples couldn't increase their cultivation, no matter how they cultivated. Hanju said, "Choose. Let them go to the heavenly race and serve the heavenly ancestor Ji Xianxian in the future." Han Zuetian accepted the order. Several days later, 1,000 immortal emperors took their positions. Hanju waved his hand and sent them out. In the current immortal world, 1,000 immortal emperors was a force that could not be underestimated. Ji Xianxian was pleasantly surprised when he received the in-name disciples. As expected of Master, "You've been thinking about me," Ji Xianxian thought to himself. Although these disciples could not compare to 1,000 nether zeniths, they were definitely not weak. Ji Xianxian warmly welcomed the hidden sect disciples. The heavenly race was shocked. When the immortals from the other sects learned that the hidden sect had sent over 1,000 immortal emperors, they were all terrified and did not dare to go against Ji Xianxian. Although the hidden sect kept a low profile, once it was mentioned, all living beings would recall all sorts of legends. The Providence sect disciples had even been warned by their elders not to provoke the hidden sect. On the other side, 33rd Heaven Sage Dao Field, Huang Zuentian knelt in front of Sect Master Tianju with a respectful attitude. Sect Master Tianju sized him up and said, "Huang Zuentian, you have already joined the Jie school for 40,000 years. What do you think of the immortal world?" Huang Zuentian replied, "The sages play chess and all living beings are pawns. The direction of the immortal world's providence is entirely determined by the sage's intentions." Sect Master Tianju said meaningfully, "Is this the reason why you led the Jie school to rest and recuperate?" "That's right. If not for the sage's arrangements, we would have acted rashly and only dug our own graves." "You're smart. Now that you're the sect master of the Jie school, what else do you want to pursue?" Huang Zuentian was silent and did not answer immediately. What did he mean? Was the sage testing him? Huang Zuentian's thoughts raced as he quickly weighed the pros and cons. Chapter 559 50,000 Years Old, Primordial Divine Rage. Chapter 559 50,000 Years Old, Primordial Divine Rage. I don't dare to expect anything, but I'll listen to the sage's arrangements, Huang Zuentian said in a low voice with his head lowered. Sect Master Tianju stared at him without saying anything. The hall fell silent. After a long while, Sect Master Tianju said faintly, "Huang Zuentian, do you want to become a sage?" Huang Zuentian's eyelids twitched as he said, "Of course. But I want to protect the Jie school more. Without the Jie school, I wouldn't be where I am today." Sect Master Tianju said, "The various Providence sects will compete for the new sage position. You are the only one qualified in the Jie school. I will pave the way for you. What you have to do is to strengthen the Jie school and increase its providence." Huang Zuentian frowned. "Where's Jing Tiangong?" Sect Master Tianju snorted. "He has already betrayed us. His heart is with the dark forbidden lord. Otherwise, why would he pass it on to you?" Huang Zuentian was silent. "That's settled. In 10,000 years, I want more than 100 million disciples and more than 500 deity realm cultivators." Sect Master Tianju snorted. Huang Zuentian cursed silently. He was really asking for too much. The deity realm was not so easy to nurture. However, facing a sage, Huang Zuantian did not dare to say no. After leaving the sage Dao field, Huang Zuantian flew down to the 33rd heaven. He couldn't help but think of the hidden sect. Sigh. When will Master summon me back? The hidden sect is already so strong. Why do you still want me to hide? Could it be that he had even greater ambitions? Huang Zuantian did not dare to continue thinking. If he did, he would probably be discovered by the sages. He had to forget about this first. Time passed. More than 800 years went by. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. Detected that you are 50,000 years old, and your life has taken another step forward. You have the following choices. 1. Exit seclusion immediately and control the heavenly Tao alone. You can obtain a mystical power inheritance, a great Tao fragment, and a supreme treasure. 2. Cultivate in a low-profile manner and pursue surpassing the heavenly Tao. You can obtain a great Tao fragment and a pseudo-sage Tao field guard. Hanju opened his eyes and smiled. Finally, Hanju directly chose the second option. You choose to cultivate in a low-profile manner and pursue surpassing the heavenly Tao. You will obtain a great Tao fragment and a pseudo-sage Tao field guard. Hanju finally accumulated 9 great Tao fragments. A pseudo-sage Tao field guard was also not bad. This time, Hanju planned to duplicate the 3 pure sacred ancestor. The 3 pure sacred ancestor had already submitted to him. In addition, the simulation trial had his data, so there was no problem in choosing him. Beginning to duplicate the Tao field guard, Hanju took out the 9 great Tao fragments and fused them. He had already planned for the new great Tao comprehension. He wanted to create a great Tao mystical power that could completely fuse the grand unity aspect. After the 9 great Tao fragments fused, a strong light burst out and drowned Hanju's figure. He entered the great Tao comprehension state. Immortal world and island. A white-haired youth sat at the top of the mountain, facing the east. His body was surrounded by a visible wind. A beam of light descended from the sky and landed in front of him. Tian opened one eye and saw a ruddy old Taoist. The old Taoist smiled and said, Tian, if you want to cultivate, you have to seek the Tao. Why don't you acknowledge me as your master? Tian replied, I already have a complete name. It's called Tian. As for a master, I don't need one. Tian? The old Taoist pondered for a moment and did not understand the meaning of this name. If you don't acknowledge me as your master, you can only cultivate by instinct. When can you walk out of the endless sea? Who said that I rely on my instincts to cultivate? Tian looked disdainful. Without waiting for the old Taoist to continue asking, Tian said impatiently, Leave quickly. If you come again, don't blame me for being impolite. The old Taoist frowned. Why are you so stubborn? Tian stood up immediately, his expression quickly becoming sinister. His white hair stretched out and turned into thousands of venomous snakes. His thin body began to expand his muscles and his aura suddenly changed. The murderous soaring aura caused the sky to change and thunderclouds to gather. Moved, the old Taoist immediately disappeared. Tian's expression softened, and he returned to his original appearance. He looked harmless. This was not the first cultivator he had chased away. He was annoyed. Why was there always someone coming to take him in as a disciple? He was born with cultivation techniques and mystical powers. He didn't need to acknowledge anyone as his master. 1,000 years had passed since he was born. His cultivation level had already reached the rank 9 Immortal Emperor realm. More than 100 islands in the area had submitted to him. He enjoyed this life and did not want to leave this sea. At this moment, a 3-headed eagle flew over and landed in front of him. It said respectfully, Your Majesty. A person appeared in the north and floated on the sea. His aura is powerful, and he can't wake up. Our subordinates can't bite him at all. Hearing this, Tian became interested and immediately jumped over to check. Tens of thousands of kilometers away, countless birds circled the sea. There were also many sea life forms that had yet to transform leaping out of the sea. In the middle of them floated a man covered in blood. It was Han Tua. He was severely injured. White bones could be seen at his joints. Tian quickly rushed over, scaring the surrounding living beings away. He frowned as his gaze landed on Han Tuo. For some reason, Han Tuo's aura made him feel inexplicably close. He felt as if he had encountered his own kind. He raised his hand and waved. Han Tuo left the sea and landed in his hand. He carried him and left, disappearing into the horizon in the blink of an eye. In the Taoist temple of the 100-peak Immortal River, Hanju suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes shone brightly, and his aura was oppressive. This mystical power is called the primordial divine rage. It combines the power of many fiend celestials when it's mastered. It forms the strongest mystical power, and can destroy the enemy in one strike. Hanju muttered to himself as a line of words appeared in front of him. Congratulations on creating the great Tao mystical power primordial divine rage. Hanju checked the attributes list. 49 years had passed. 7 times 7 was 49. Somehow, the number 7 was predestined. Hanju began the simulation trial and tested the primordial divine rage. Against Li Muyi insta-kill. Against Qiushilai insta-kill. Against the South Extreme Heavenly Venerate, insta-kill. Sage Fated Secrets was insta-killed. He didn't insta-kill Heavenly Venerate Wufa. But Hanju was no longer passive. He had the upper hand. Hanju challenged Ancestor Shitian next. The primordial divine rage attacked Ancestor Shitian, without causing any damage. In the simulation trials, Hanju became more proficient in using the primordial divine rage. No one at the Sage realm could withstand it. Even if it was a heavenly Tao sage, the primordial divine rage could sever the providence of the heavenly Tao in one strike, and send the other party to their death. Hanju was very satisfied. During this period of time, the Tao field guard had already been copied. He stayed in the corner of the Taoist temple waiting for Hanju's instructions. From now on, your name is Cao Cao. Go outside and cultivate, Hanju said. Cao Cao immediately bowed and left respectfully. Hanju's Three Kingdoms army expanded again. In a good mood, he checked the emails. Soon he frowned because of an email. Your son Han Tuo was attacked by the Dark Sage King and was severely injured. Chapter 560 Reincarnation Mystic Realm. Great Sage Heavens Equal. Chapter 560 Reincarnation Mystic Realm. Great Sage Heavens Equal. How did the Dark Sage King attack Han Tuo? Hanju pinched his fingers to deduce, but he couldn't find anything. It was possible that the Dark Sage King had not entered the Heavenly Tao. He had to use the derivation function. 10 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Hanju entered the illusion. When he opened his eyes again, Hanju saw Han Tuo. This was a dark world. Strange lightning interwove the sky. The ground was desolate, and swamps of different sizes emitted a stench. Looking up, bones were strewn everywhere. Han Tuo walked very carefully and was vigilant. A ball of black aura suddenly appeared in front of him and quickly expanded. It surged violently, and a pair of eyes appeared from it. These eyes were evil and cold as they looked down at Han Tuo. Dark Sage King. Human ant, how dare you come here? Although Han Tuo was a little nervous, he did not panic. He only heard him say, I heard that the reincarnation mystic realm can revive the dead. You only need to pay a price. Hanju was surprised. The Dark Sage King actually had a stronghold in the immortal world? He had always been paying attention to Han Tuo. This kid had not left the immortal world. Reincarnation mystic realm. What a good excuse. The Dark Sage King said. The price of reincarnation is not small. The closer you are to someone, the greater the price. Karma cannot be reversed. Han Tuo took a deep breath and said, I want to revive my wife. Hanju cursed silently. Lil brat. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website MyBox Novel. Thanks. Why not revive your parents? Indeed, he was abducted by women when he grew up. The Dark Sage King was silent for a moment before saying, To revive your wife, you have to offer half of your lifespan. Are you willing? Han Tuo asked. What if I want to resurrect my parents? You also need to spend half of your lifespan. In other words, I can only choose one, not both. Reincarnation is already a treacherous thing. How can it go as planned? Han Tuo fell silent. He took a deep breath and said, In that case, forget it. No matter who I choose, my heart will be burdened with guilt. I'll come again when I'm stronger. One day, I'll be able to do as I wish. Han Tuo bowed to the Dark Sage King and left. How can the reincarnation mystic realm be a place where you can come and go as you wish? Since you're here, leave your providence behind. The Dark Sage King transformed into a vast black mist and directly drowned Han Tuo. His speed was so fast that Han Tuo didn't even have time to react. Immediately after, a spatial crack appeared beside the black mist. Covered in blood, Han Tuo was spat out and thrown into it. The illusion ended. Han Ju opened his eyes and fell into deep thought. He observed the immortal world and found the location of the reincarnation mystic realm. It was at the edge of the immortal world, hidden in a separate space. There were continuous mountains near the entrance, and people were sparse. Han Ju thought for a moment and used the dark nightmare to visit Qiu Shilai in his dreams. In the dream, Qiu Shilai was slightly shocked. The dream came too suddenly. Han Ju directly told him about the origins of the Dark Sage King and talked about the reincarnation mystic realm. Qiu Shilai was moved. A terrifying existence that could make Li Muyi suffer was not something the heavenly Tao sages, could defeat. The reincarnation mystic realm has already appeared for 3 immeasurable calamities. It seems that the Dark Sage King has long targeted the heavenly Tao. Qiu Shilai frowned and muttered to himself. Han Ju said, I'll leave this to you. I have to continue cultivating to prevent the Dark Sage King from attacking. Qiu Shilai nodded without any objections. Han Ju's greatest use was his strength. It was also a good thing that he was willing to stay in seclusion. As for the other sages, they no longer needed to cultivate. It was difficult for their cultivation levels to increase. If they wanted to become stronger, they had to start from the heavenly Tao's providence. The stronger the heavenly Tao was, the stronger the heavenly Tao sage became. After the dream ended, Han Ju looked at Han Tuo. He and the son of the heavenly Tao, Etion, were together. Their relationship was actually not bad. The two of them sparred on an island and laughed. Han Ju frowned slightly. Han Tuo's aura was somewhat similar to Etion's. In addition to Etion's identity, the sages would definitely sense Han Tuo. Forget it. It was normal that he couldn't hide it. After all, Han Tuo was also becoming stronger. Although he had yet to completely become a primordial fiend celestial, he was also different from all living beings. Back when Han Ju transformed into a primordial fiend celestial, he had even entered the chaotic domain. Perhaps the chaotic and primordial chaos had a close relationship. TSK, the son of the heavenly Tao is really absurd. He's only been born for a few years, and is already almost at the deity realm. Han Ju muttered to himself. He discovered that Etion was covered in treasures. He clearly did not acknowledge a master, but he had grasped a powerful mystical power. It was at least a sage mystical power. What a great heavenly Tao. I don't care about the rules. I'll provide cheats to my son. Han Ju raised his right hand and cast another spell. He wanted to loosen Han Tuo's bloodline seal again. This time, he would directly release half of it. However, he didn't know if it could compete with the son of the heavenly Tao's bloodline. On the other side, on a vast island, Han Tuo and Etion were fighting. The two of them did not use any spell mystical powers. Instead, they sparred with their bodies. Before Han Tuo rose, he had relied on his physical strength. Etion was a chaotic fiend celestial. His physical potential was even stronger than the ancestral magus back then. Boom! Han Tuo was struck by Etion's fist again and fell on the hill, causing dust to fly. Etion floated in the air with his hands on his waist and laughed proudly. Han Tuo, you can't do it. I haven't even used my true strength, and you're already down. Do you still want to be my big brother? You should be my younger brother. Han Tuo got up with difficulty and spat out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, he suddenly felt something enter his body. Immediately after, he felt relaxed and relieved. This feeling, Han Tuo became excited. He knew this feeling too well. In the past, he had encountered this many times. Every time he felt this, his cultivation level would increase greatly. He believed that he had broken through the limits of his bloodline. Humans were the spirits of all living beings. Every mortal had unlimited potential, but they could not find a way to break through the shackles. Han Tuo thought so. The reason why he could constantly break through the shackles was definitely related to his persistence. As Han Tua meditated, Etion looked at him suspiciously. He seems to be becoming stronger. Indeed, he's the same as me. Etion's eyes flickered with excitement. Before meeting Han Tua, he was extremely lonely. Although he had countless subordinates, he was lonely in his heart. He felt desolate, as if he had nowhere to return to. Time passed. Another 500 years passed. In the past 500 years, the immortal world had changed greatly. The heavenly race, who had obtained the support of the hidden sect, began to fight everywhere. Other than the various races in the immortal world, they also wanted to control the mortal world. Just like the past heavenly court, their momentum became greater and greater. However, there was no movement from the heavenly court. Those who didn't know would think that it had already been disbanded. Many experts appeared in the immortal world. Their names shook the world. Etion was one of them. He called himself the Great Sage Heaven's Equal. This name came from a story Han Tua had told him. He had heard it from his father when he was young. 100 Peak Immortal River. Just as Han Ju finished preaching, he looked at the Nether race. Han Yu and the 1,000 Nether Zeniths had returned long ago, but Li Daokong was still pestering the 3 pure sacred ancestor like a fly. Currently, most of the cultivation of the 10,000 Nether race members were near the 3 mystic divine origin. If he wanted to cultivate all of them to the Zenith Heaven realm, it would probably take tens of thousands of years, or even longer. Chapter 561 Immeasurable Calamity, New Sages, Unknown Karma. Chapter 561 Immeasurable Calamity, New Sages. Unknown Karma. Han Ju originally wanted to stay in the Dao field, and occasionally send them out to carry out missions. However, as time passed, he discovered that the situation was not good. An attitude of lacking interest in cultivation began to appear among the Nether race. There were no mortal enemies or goals. They had been cultivating in a boring manner, causing many Nether Zeniths and other disciples to slack off and even give up. This was also the case among the personal disciples. The Black Hell Chicken, the Chaotic Heavenly Dog, Zhou Mingyue, and so on. Very few disciples didn't slack off at all. In the entire hidden sect, other than Han Ju, only Li Yao kept cultivating in seclusion. The others would occasionally stop cultivating and relax. Han Ju stood up and left. He was thinking along the way. Was he really right? Not everyone was in a hurry to cultivate. In terms of vision, the other disciples were inferior to him. From their point of view, the hidden sect was already invincible. With Han Ju above them, cultivation was not that important. Besides, if they didn't like to cultivate, who could cultivate diligently all the time? Just like in his previous life, everyone knew that studying was good and could change fate. But how many people actually insisted on studying? After returning to the Taoist temple, Han Ju was still thinking about this question. 10 years later, all the disciples woke up from their Tao comprehension state. Han Ju's voice suddenly resounded throughout the hidden sect. The immortal world pursues the sage position, so our hidden sect naturally has to pursue it. The heavenly Tao has 9 heavenly Tao sages, but our hidden sect has more than 9. If you have ambitions, cultivate well. As long as you reach the perfected pseudo-sage realm, I have a way to help you become sages. How many sages the hidden sect can produce depends on your efforts. The entire hidden sect was in an uproar. Sage. The 1,000,000 disciples were all excited. If other sages said this, they might scoff. But from Han Ju's point of view, they all believed for a time. The hidden sect was in an uproar. Everyone was discussing this matter. Many disciples began to enter seclusion. Han Ju secretly heaved a sigh of relief. This stimulant was only temporary. After a period of time, their passion would definitely decrease. However, that was something for the future. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. Spring passed and autumn came. 1,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. Perhaps because nothing happened, Han Ju felt that the past 1,000 years had been unprecedentedly fast, as if he had a blurry dream. There were no storms or conflicts in the 100 Peak Immortal River. Although the battle in the immortal world did not stop, it did not affect the 100 Peak Immortal River. Most of the hidden sect disciples could feel the peace. Why most? Because many disciples still wanted to leave. They felt that they were already strong enough, or couldn't take another step forward. So they didn't want to cultivate anymore. On this day, Hanju summoned Han Zuetian and asked him to screen unnamed disciples who couldn't increase their cultivation and send them to the heavenly race. Hanju originally wanted to support the heavenly court, but he felt that there was no need. The heavenly emperor had already established the new heavenly court. What was the use of the old heavenly court? If they supported the heavenly court and the heavenly race, wouldn't there be chaos if these two forces fought each other? Several days later, 5,000 unnamed disciples left. A third consisted of immortal emperors, and the remaining were Grand Unity Golden Immortals. Hanju pulled Feng Liang and Ji Xianxin into a dream at the same time. The dream was a small forest near the Jade Pure Sacred Sect. Seeing him, they immediately knelt down and bowed. Hanju said, "From now on, the vice leader of the heavenly race will be Feng Liang. The two of you will support each other and control the heavenly race alone to fight for the heavenly Tao's providence." Hearing this, Feng Liang was stunned. He had long guessed that the hidden sect was supporting Ji Xianxin, but Ji Xianxin didn't say anything, so he didn't dare to believe it. Hearing Hanju's words now, he still had mixed feelings. Why don't you support my heavenly court? This thought couldn't be dismissed. Ji Xianxin smiled readily and said, "Of course. The burden on me can finally be lifted." Hanju said calmly, "Feng Liang, don't be tied down by the heavenly court. The previous heavenly emperor is still alive, and has also established a new heavenly court. Be careful not to be implicated. A new era needs a new face. The leader of the heavenly race is not the end for you. I have higher expectations for you. This is only the beginning of your training. Don't disappoint me." Ji Xianxin and Feng Liang were stunned. Higher expectations? Could it be the sage position? Their hearts beat faster. They already knew that Hanju was a sage, and not an ordinary heavenly Tao sage. Hanju had his own Tao attainment method. Ji Xianxin's eyes burned as he asked, "Are you a sage?" Hanju said, "The heavenly Tao is not everything in my eyes. I hope that you can follow in my footsteps. Do you know where the previous generation of sages went?" The two of them shook their heads with curiosity. Hanju waved his sleeve and removed the dream. The rest was left to the two of them to mediate. Hanju continued cultivating. He was only at the mid-stage primordial chaos zenith heaven golden immortal realm, and was still far from the freedom sage realm, let alone the great Tao sage realm. There was still a long way to go. He had to set a goal first. Before the next immeasurable calamity arrived, he had to reach the great Tao sage realm. 300 years later, I, Qiu Shilai, will preach the Tao in the 33rd heaven 1,000 years later. This lecture will choose the sage candidate to replace me in the future. Qiu Shilai's voice resounded through the myriad worlds, causing an uproar. Sage position. This time was different from the past. Qiu Shilai had clearly said that he would give up his position. Hanju, who was cultivating, opened his eyes with a strange expression. Qiu Shilai wanted to abdicate? He was only a late-stage heavenly Tao sage, and had yet to reach the perfected realm. How could he abdicate? Hanju felt that this fellow was going to trick someone again. He suddenly had a bold idea. I want to know who the heavenly Tao sages are when the next calamity begins. 10 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. 9 figures appeared in Hanju's mind. Qiu Shilai Li Muyi, the South Extreme Heavenly Venerate, Li Daokong, Etian, Huang Zuentian Fuxishan, Great Loose Heaven, Jin Shun and 2 unknown sages. Their information appeared in front of Hanju. Great Loose Heaven, Heavenly Tao Sage, Immeasurable Emperor, Jin Shun. Heavenly Tao Sage, Ancient Master of Calamity. Hanju had a strange expression. Sect Master Tianju and Emperor Shao were gone. It was unknown if they had transcended or perished, but Li Muyi had actually returned to the Heavenly Tao Sage position. It wasn't surprising that Li Daokong had become a sage. Although it was fast, it was normal for Etian as a son of the Heavenly Tao. Huang Zuentian. Hanju could only say one word. Amazing. Hanju had always been letting Huang Zuentian be. He could be where he was today, because of his own efforts. Etian became a sage. Why did that kid Han Tua fall behind? Hanju thought silently, and continued to derive. I want to know Han Tuo's cultivation level when the next calamity begins? It involves your own karma and unknown karma. You are not allowed to derive it. Han Ju showed a frown. What was the unknown karma? It seemed that he had to pay more attention to Han Tuo in the future. Han Ju immediately looked around and accidentally discovered that Han Tuo and Etion had already left the sea and arrived at the center of the immortal world. They were cultivating in a mysterious place filled with ancient restrictions. The limbs of the previous immeasurable calamity mighty figures were thrown down by Emperor Shao. It was unknown who had piled them here. Chapter 562 Great Tao Tablet, Body Possession. Chapter 562 Great Tao Tablet, Body Possession. Han Ju observed carefully. Han Tuo and Etion sat in front of a stone tablet. There was actually a trace of Tao runes hidden in the stone tablet. The runes of the Great Tao. Tao of Karma. Could it be left behind by ancestor Shitian? Han Tuo and Etion were clearly comprehending a mystical power. Han Ju retracted his gaze and asked silently, why did ancestor Shitian leave behind this mystical power? 160 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Han Ju entered the illusion. If he didn't figure these things out, Han Ju wouldn't be able to eat and sleep in peace. It was mainly because of those sages that he felt that the mighty figures had their own ambitions and motives. Han Ju opened his eyes and discovered that he had arrived at the great ultimate hall. Ancestor Shitian sat on the mat. His aura was ethereal like a phantom. A voice sounded, I'm about to leave. I'll leave the heavenly Tao in your care. Hearing this, ancestor Shitian opened his eyes and frowned. Why? I have nothing to do with the heavenly Tao. The only person I can trust is you. The mysterious voice's words made ancestor Shitian silent. Ancestor Shitian said, I don't want to interfere in the matters of the heavenly Tao. You can leave behind some opportunities and let new experts appear in the future heavenly Tao. After so many calamities, the sage positions are almost monopolized. They are all passed down from generation to generation by the previous sages. Many geniuses with greater potential are killed. It's not a good thing for the heavenly Tao's development. Fine. The illusion shattered. Han Ju opened his eyes and heaved a sigh of relief. The person who was communicating with ancestor Shitian should be that mysterious Tao ancestor. Since he had good intentions, Han Ju didn't have to worry. He looked at his son for a while more and continued cultivating. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website MyBox Novel. Thanks. The heavenly Tao developed very smoothly. As long as there was no situation like the heavenly devil calamity, Han Ju didn't have to take action. As for the sages, they didn't dare to target him openly. In a cave abode, the three pure sacred ancestor was communicating with Li Muyi. Li Muyi frowned and said, Li Daokong shouldn't be targeting you because of Han Ju's instructions. There's something wrong with this kid's temperament. Ignore him. The three pure sacred ancestor nodded. He was very unhappy when Li Daokong was mentioned. He wasn't holding back on the account of Li Muyi, but Han Ju. Li Muyi snorted. If not for me protecting him in the past, this kid would have died long ago. For the time being, stay here in peace unless I order you otherwise. The three pure sacred ancestor nodded. Li Muyi stared at the other party, feeling uncomfortable. For some reason, ever since he returned after leaving for a period of time, he felt that the three pure sacred ancestor had gone out of his control. However, the three pure sacred ancestor only listened to him and was not completely controlled by him. He couldn't see through him. If the three pure sacred ancestor betrayed him, he could do nothing because he couldn't enter the immortal world, and the three pure sacred ancestor couldn't leave the area of the heavenly Tao. In the end, Li Muyi didn't say anything else and dissipated. The three pure sacred ancestor closed his eyes as the cave abode fell silent. Dark clouds covered the sky. Ghost shadows undulated in the sea of clouds. It was ghastly and terrifying. Below was the desolate land. Han Tuo, wearing black clothes, and Etion, wearing a beast skin robe, meditated side by side. In front of the two of them stood a strange stone tablet that was 30 feet tall. Strange words could be seen on the stone tablet's surface. They were vivid and looked like flowing blood. Etion opened his eyes and said proudly, "I've already learned it. What about you?" Han Tuo glanced at him and said, "Not as fast as you. Where did this fellow come from? His potential was too terrifying." However, Han Tuo was not far from learning the mystical power. Etion stood up and said, "Continue cultivating. I'll go take a look around. There's a powerful force hidden nearby. I'm very interested in it." With that, he strode forward. Han Tuo frowned. "Be careful. This is a forbidden land." "It's fine. Don't worry." Etion waved his hand and quickly disappeared at the end of the horizon. Han Tuo closed his eyes and continued to comprehend the mystical power. Several months later, Han Tuo was excited. He had successfully grasped this mystical power. What a domineering mystical power. I'm stronger now. Although my cultivation isn't at the deity realm, it shouldn't be difficult to deal with a powerful enemy who has just entered the deity realm. Han Tuo thought confidently. He suddenly felt that something was wrong. Why was Etion not back yet? Han Tuo stood up and prepared to go looking for him. At this moment, a huge crack suddenly appeared in the sky. Golden light shone from it, illuminating the world. Figures in silver armor rushed in, led by the heavenly god general. The heavenly god general scanned the surroundings and said, "All immortals, listen up. Follow the plan and search for the location of the great Tao mystical power." The immortals immediately dispersed. Han Tuo looked over from afar and was shocked by the heavenly god general's spirit. So powerful. Heavenly race? Han Tuo immediately used the earth escape technique to leave. The heavenly god general glanced in the direction Han Tuo had left in, and his gaze landed on the stone tablet. What was that? The heavenly god general immediately flew over. For the next period of time, Han Tuo did not leave the Forbidden Land. Instead, he searched for Etion in the Forbidden Land. He discovered that more and more forces entered the Forbidden Land and even fought. After searching for 8 years, Han Tuo finally found Etion in a cave. However, Etion was already petrified. There were many stone statues around him with different postures. They looked like they were sealed without any preparations. Shocked, Han Tuo looked around cautiously. The cave was dark and filled with a strange mist, like the depths of the chaos. Han Tuo suddenly heard a faint panting. He was even more nervous. His divine sense covered his surroundings, but he didn't sense anything wrong. What happened? Han Tuo immediately picked up Etion's stone statue and prepared to escape. At this moment, a terrifying killing intent enveloped Han Tuo, shocking him to the point that he stopped moving. What a powerful body and blood vitality. The providence of the heavenly Tao is still very weak. "Kid, you're very suitable to be my body of possession." A cold voice sounded. Ghost flames suddenly burned on Han Tuo's body, startling him so much that his body shook violently and dispersed the ghost flames. Han Tuo raised his arms, and blood patterns that were like the gods on the stone tablet crawled onto his body. "Perfect. I'll use you to test my new mystical power," Han Tuo shouted in a low voice, his eyes a little excited. In the Taoist temple of the 100-peak Immortal River, 40 years had passed since the last derivation. Han Ju suddenly sensed something and opened his eyes, raising his eyebrows slightly. Who dares to possess my son? You think you can touch my bloodline?" Han Ju muttered with a strange expression, asking to be killed. He silently deduced and discovered that the origins of the existence who wanted to possess Han Tuo were strange and extremely complicated. It was like an existence condensed from countless ghosts in the previous calamity. It felt like an inferior strange deity. It was a pity to kill this fellow directly. It was better to let him be Han Tuo's slave. It could also increase Han Tuo's survival ability. Han Ju immediately cast a spell. In the catacombs, Han Tuo was also petrified like the surrounding stone statues, and could not move. An endless black aura entered his body. An unprecedented pain made Han Tuo despair. He could clearly feel that his control over his body was fading, and his soul was in pain. The mysterious existence was still laughing wildly, as if he was about to obtain Han Tuo's body. At this moment, the mysterious existence suddenly screamed in horror. Chapter 563 Calamities Vengeful. Battle of the Heavenly Race and Demons. Chapter 563 Calamities Vengeful. Battle of the Heavenly Race and Demons. What's going on? Who are you? Why is this happening? Why? The mysterious existence roared in Han Tuo's mind in extreme fear. Han Tuo's pain also began to quickly fade. He couldn't help but be puzzled. What happened? He thought that he was doomed. Why did the other party suddenly suffer a backlash? Could it be that evil could not suppress good? Han Tuo waited uneasily. The mysterious existence's screams became more and more miserable. Han Tuo's body recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the stone layer quickly disappeared. When Han Tuo returned to normal, the mysterious existence no longer screamed. He felt something in the depths of his soul. He could easily control it like an arm. He took it out. Immediately after, a ball of black aura emerged from his eyes and landed on the ground, quickly condensing into a figure. This person had an ugly face. His facial features seemed to be pieced together. His body was enveloped by a black aura, and his true appearance could not be seen. Han Tuo wasn't nervous, because he could completely control the figure in front of him. This feeling was extremely realistic. He could decide the other party's life and death with a thought. Who are you? Han Tuo asked. The other party said fearfully. I also want to ask who you are. Han Tuo did not answer and stared at him coldly. The figure trembled in fear and hurriedly said, You can call me Calamities Vengeful. I'm formed by countless vengeful spirits. Vengeful spirits? Where did you come from? Immeasurable calamity. Han Tuo's eyes lit up and he asked, Legend has it that the calamity just ended tens of thousands of years ago. What is the calamity? What kind of scene is it? The Calamities Vengeful said carefully. The immeasurable calamity is the most terrifying calamity in the world. Most of the living beings in the previous immeasurable calamity died, causing the heavenly Tao to restart. At that time, the top mighty figures almost reshuffled. Have you seen mountains and seas filled with flesh and blood everywhere? That is the immeasurable calamity. Han Tuo was entranced. Was it really that terrifying? Han Tuo asked. Is Li Daokong the unparalleled mighty figure of the previous immeasurable calamity? The Calamities Vengeful said indignantly. I've indeed heard of Li Daokong in the memories I possess. He was the eldest disciple of the human school, and he supported the heavenly court. However, the heavenly court suffered a crushing defeat. I wonder if Li Daokong survived. Han Tuo couldn't help but sigh. He survived. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website MyBox Novel. Thanks. However, he had already been expelled by the human school. Han Tuo had always been in awe of Li Daokong. After all, he was the strongest person he had ever encountered, and the other party had even saved him. However, Li Daokong didn't like him. He couldn't even acknowledge him as his master. Han Tuo asked curiously, Then, who was the winner of the previous immeasurable calamity? I heard that there will be a winner in every calamity. They will rely on their providence to soar. Calamities Vengeful pondered and recalled his memories. It should be the Dark Forbidden Lord. Many memories in my mind have mentioned the Dark Forbidden Lord. It's said that the immeasurable calamity was caused by the Dark Forbidden Lord. Even after the calamity ended, no one knew the true identity of the Dark Forbidden Lord. But there's a legend in the world. When the heavens fall into darkness, the Dark Forbidden Lord will descend. This day will definitely come. The tone was filled with fear. Most of the vengeful spirits of the immeasurable calamity had experienced curses. That era where everyone cursed each other was crazy. Han Tuo continued to ask the Calamities Vengeful, and used its memories to understand the history of the entire immortal world. Han Ju retracted his gaze. The Calamities Vengeful was very strong, and was already at the Zenith Heaven realm. With Han Tuo's cultivation level, it was impossible for him to suppress the Calamities Vengeful. But it was impossible for a Zenith Heaven to resist a sage. Han Ju had his own power in Han Tuo's body. This power didn't surpass the perfected pseudo-sage realm. Otherwise it would be rejected by the heavenly Tao. With Han Ju's cultivation, it was too easy to control the strength. Han Tuo had a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal as his bodyguard. However, he didn't know Calamities Vengeful's cultivation level. It was not that honest. It only said that it was stronger than Han Tua and was proficient in soul mystical powers. Continue cultivating. The Dark Sage King has already targeted the immortal world. He might attack at any time. I can't be careless. Hanju thought silently. Although the protection of the heavenly Tao was strong, what if it was gone? This was not impossible. Safety came from himself. Hanju would never put security in the heavenly Tao, let alone this heavenly Tao who wanted to scheme against him. Time passed. 3,000 years passed. This was the longest Hanju had been in seclusion. In the past 3,000 years, he hadn't even preached the Tao, or anyone came to disturb him. During this period of time, the situation in the immortal world changed. Qiu Shilai ended the lecture and appointed a cultivator called Great Loose Heaven as the successor of the sage position. This matter shocked the myriad worlds. Great Loose Heaven was not simple. After the heavenly Tao restarted, he was the first mighty cultivator who established the mortal world. After that, the Great Loose Heaven established a Providence sect in the immortal world. It had more than 10 million disciples and had the aura of the Jia school from back then. Apart from that, the demons were very fierce. Great Sage Heaven's equal, Etion, joined the demons and became one of the 10 great demon saints under the Golden Crow Demon Emperor. He had countless demon soldiers under him and dominated an area. In contrast, the human race had entered the most difficult period. All the races could feed on them. After losing their status as a heavenly Tao race, only the human school cared for them, but they did not support them greatly. They only occasionally helped. On the other side, the heavenly race became very powerful and had overwhelming power. No force in the entire immortal world could compare to them. They had too many immortal emperors. They had few deity realm cultivators, but above them was a peerless mighty figure. The number one sword immortal of the immortal world, Li Daokong. Li Daokong had joined the heavenly race 1,000 years ago and relied on his powerful reputation to attract many mighty figures. Some cultivators joked that the next calamity would be a battle between the heavenly race and the demon race. On this day, Hanju opened his eyes and stood up, stretching his waist. Awesome. Cultivating without distractions was too satisfying. No wonder the mighty figures of the primordial era entered seclusion for 3,000 years at once. 3,000 years of seclusion had increased Hanju's cultivation greatly. He could feel himself becoming stronger. Hanju checked his emails first. After confirming that nothing major had happened recently, and that his friends were safe, he walked out of the Taoist temple. Cao Cao, Zhangju, and the Crimson Fox immediately stood up and bowed to him. Hanju nodded slightly and came to the Fusang tree. The disciples under the tree stood up and bowed. The Black Hell Chicken shouted, "It's been a few thousand years. Master is looking better again. His cultivation level has definitely surpassed that of a sage." This flattery was a little too much. Hanju was about to scold the chicken when Tao Comprehension Sword suddenly walked over. "Master, I was just about to look for you," Tao Comprehension Sword said anxiously. Hanju asked, "What is it?" Tao Comprehension Sword looked around and sent him a voice transmission. Tai Sutian sent me a dream and said that the human race is in trouble. She hopes that the hidden sect can save them. She said that Niwa will definitely not go back on her word. What you want is hidden in the human race. Niwa had hidden her primordial purple chi in the human race? Hanju didn't really care. He didn't need the primordial purple chi. Besides, there were so many humans. Should he protect them all? In his opinion, it was fine as long as the humans of the reroll world were alive. Even if all the humans in the immortal world died, what did it have to do with him? But then again, what calamity did the human race face? Hanju pinched his fingers to deduce, and his expression became strange. Chapter 564 Submission of Reincarnation, Tao Seeker. Chapter 564 Submission of Reincarnation. Tao Seeker. Through his deduction, Hanju discovered that the calamity of the human race actually came from within themselves. 10,000 years ago, a young human family had been slaughtered and experienced all sorts of tribulations. They were filled with hatred for their race. Later, they obtained an opportunity in a certain danger spot and soared into the sky. This person was called Su Dudao. His master was Immortal Emperor Samsara. Hanju almost forgot about this fellow. He didn't expect him to still be secretly active. Su Dudao was already at the deity realm. He had reached this realm in 10,000 years. His speed was extremely exaggerated. But Hanju sensed that most of his body was filled with Immortal Emperor Samsara's dermic powers. Immortal Emperor Samsara was a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. It wouldn't be difficult for him to become a pseudo-sage in the future. Hanju ignored Dao Comprehension Sword and left, returning to his Taoist temple. He asked in his mind, why did Immortal Emperor Samsara support Su Dudao? 2 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? 2 billion years. Not bad. Immortal Emperor Samsara was something. Continue. Hanju's consciousness fell into the illusion. This was a dark space filled with mist. Immortal Emperor Samsara sat in front of him. His image was mysterious like a shadow. At this moment, a figure landed in front of Immortal Emperor Samsara. It was Su Dudao. Su Dudao was unconscious and on the verge of death. A voice sounded. Immortal Emperor Samsara, don't you want to become a sage? Support this kid, and let him destroy the human race. The human race will die in your hands. You and I will not shoulder the karma. In the future, I will think of a way to obtain the primordial purple chi for you. Hanju had a strange expression. This voice, Emperor Shao. He didn't expect Emperor Shao to be behind Immortal Emperor Samsara. Immortal Emperor Samsara opened his eyes and revealed 2 pupils. He asked softly, how can I believe you? Emperor Shao said, you can only believe me. The other sages don't think highly of you. You came from the Tao of reincarnation, and Empress Hutu is above you. Immortal Emperor Samsara was silent. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website MyBox Novel. Thanks. The illusion shattered and Hanju opened his eyes. Speaking of Immortal Emperor Samsara, Hanju's feelings were very complicated. The Immortal Emperor inheritance arranged by the system for him came from Immortal Emperor Samsara. Immortal Emperor Samsara had also plotted against him in the past, but he had not harmed him. His previous clone Ditai Bai had often helped him. After tens of thousands of years, the world had changed. He could already look down on Immortal Emperor Samsara. After thinking about it, Hanju decided to visit Immortal Emperor Samsara in his dreams. Immortal Emperor Samsara hid very well, but in the eyes of sages, he was not hidden. It was very easy to find him. In the dream, Immortal Emperor Samsara opened his eyes and saw Hanju, who was emitting divine light. He couldn't help but frown and ask in a low voice, who are you? He was shocked. He had been pulled into a dream without any guard. Even sages were not as terrifying. Hanju retracted the divine light of the sun and moon yin-yang protection and revealed his unparalleled handsome face. After seeing his face, Immortal Emperor Samsara was moved. Hanju said, this is the first time we meet, but it's not the first time either. Immortal Emperor Samsara was silent. After a long while, he sighed. I was right about you, but I've also underestimated you. His feelings towards Hanju were complicated. When Hanju displayed his potential back then, Immortal Emperor Samsara had paid close attention to him. However, he didn't expect him to rise too quickly. It was so fast that before he could react, Hanju had already surpassed him. Hanju said, do you need a backing? Immortal Emperor Samsara was stunned. He frowned. What do you mean? I also owe you karma. Work for me and I'll support you. Do you know what I want? Isn't it just the sage position? Immortal Emperor Samsara fell silent again. Hanju wasn't in a hurry and waited patiently. Immortal Emperor Samsara looked up and asked, why do you trust me? Hanju stared at him and said, there are causes and effects. The heavenly Tao's karma has its own operation. I know your situation, and it's not good. You only need to humble yourself and serve me. You should know my temperament. No one in the hidden sect is uncomfortable. I'll only give you this opportunity once. If you still betray me after agreeing, believe me, not only Emperor Shao, but no sage can save you. Immortal Emperor Samsara was expressionless, but his heart trembled. Hanju mentioned Emperor Shao. Could it be? Immortal Emperor Samsara took a deep breath and suddenly knelt. With this meal he relaxed. Compared to dignity, he cared more about his future. He really yearned to become a sage. I will join you, sect master. Immortal Emperor Samsara said in a deep voice. Immortal Emperor Samsara's favorability towards you has increased. Current favorability, 4. 5 stars. Hanju said. Don't interfere in the matter of Su Dudao. Sever ties with him as soon as possible. Emperor Xiao won't be affected by karma. But you're considered Su Dudao's master. You will be held responsible. Otherwise, why would the sages need you as the middleman? Immortal Emperor Samsara smiled bitterly. Actually I know, but I have no choice. Hanju said. I'll teach you a great Tao. Cultivate well. Without my instructions in the future, don't do anything for the sages. You're too weak now. I don't need you to do anything. With that, he did not say anything else, and began to teach the great Tao of extreme origin to Immortal Emperor Samsara. This dream lasted for 10 years. After the dream ended, Immortal Emperor Samsara's favorability towards Hanju increased to 5 stars. The great Tao of extreme origin contained the method to attain the Tao. Immortal Emperor Samsara was shocked and glad. Fortunately, he agreed to serve Hanju. Otherwise, he would have missed this opportunity. However, when he recalled it, he sighed. He didn't expect that the backing he had been waiting for was actually nurtured by him. Karma was truly magical. Supporting Immortal Emperor Samsara was just a whim of Hanju. He didn't have any expectations for him. Even if Immortal Emperor Samsara betrayed him, he could destroy him with a flip of his hand. Moreover, as long as Immortal Emperor Samsara cultivated the great Tao of extreme origin, he could forget about betraying him. If something happened to Hanju, everyone cultivating this Tao would suffer together. Sages might resist the attraction of the great Tao of extreme origin, but who below the sages could resist? He believed that Immortal Emperor Samsara had already begun to study the great Tao of extreme origin. Hanju was in a good mood. He walked out of the Taoist temple and gathered all the disciples to preach the Tao. This lecture lasted for 100 years. 100 years later, after Hanju finished his lecture, he returned to the Taoist temple. He looked outside the 100-peak Immortal River. More than 10 years ago, a Tao seeker arrived outside the 100-peak Immortal River and knelt until now. This person was Han Tua. His son was here to seek the Tao. To be honest, Hanju didn't want to accept Han Tua for the time being. He hoped that he would take a different path from him. Once Han Tua entered, the other disciples would definitely guess his and Hanju's identities. After the truth was revealed, Han Tuo's mentality would change. His father was actually a sage. It didn't matter if his mentality became better or worse. Hanju hoped that Han Tua could walk his own path to attain the Tao. In any case, in the heavenly Tao, as long as he was around, no one could kill him. Han Tua, who was seeking the Tao, suddenly heard a voice. You can leave. Han Tua opened his eyes and said, I was invited by the hidden sect disciples, Tao's sovereign, Zhou Fan and Zhao Xinyuan. It turned out that the two people who had just entered the chaotic domain were Yi Tian and Han Tua. Hanju sent another voice transmission. If you can rely on yourself to become a pseudo-sage in 1,000,000 years, I, the sect master of the hidden sect, will directly take you in as my disciple and give you the right to attain the Tao. Chapter 565 Sage Han. Chapter 565 Sage Han Tao Attainment Qualification. Han Tuo's breathing quickened. Although attaining the Tao was extremely far from him, he knew that attaining the Tao was extremely difficult. How many geniuses had died at the pseudo-sage threshold, let alone attaining the Tao at a higher level? Han Tua said, Thank you, Senior. I understand. He immediately stood up and left. He finally woke up after leaving the 100-peak Immortal River. He laughed at himself. It was not giving him opportunities, but merely looking down on him. Fine then. When have I, Han Tua, ever relied on a sect to travel the world? Han Tuo's eyes became firm again. Since the hidden sect did not want him, why should he be persistent? 1,000,000 years? Heh. Han Tuo's eyes became firm, and he stopped thinking about this. Perhaps he was born to be free and unrestrained. Han Tua left in despair. Hanju could sense this kid's depression and dissatisfaction. This was not bad. Son, I let you go because I have absolute confidence in protecting you. Han Ju sighed. After all, he had watched Han Tuo grow up. He hoped that he would become a person with absolute confidence, and not someone who blindly trusted his father. He was still very satisfied with Han Tuo's current experience. He was sensible, but he wasn't afraid of powerful enemies. In the chaotic domain, 5 figures gathered. They couldn't see each other's faces. Zhou Fan smiled proudly. Recently, I've been doing well in Chaotic City. I've recruited many prodigies as my underlings. Dao Sovereign snorted. Don't forget to cultivate. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website MyBox Novel. Thanks. How can this be? Zhou Fan turned to look at Tian and said, Little fellow, you're very famous now. Your name spread all the way to the Chaotic City. Don't follow the demons. If I introduce you to the hidden sect or the Chaotic City, you can obtain supreme cultivation resources. Tian said, I don't need any resources. Like I said before, my talent is number 1 in the world. That's because you're not standing in front of me. Otherwise, I'll make you kneel down with one palm. Aren't you cultivating tens of thousands of years more than me? I'll definitely become a sage in the future. You're at most a pseudo-sage. How can you become a sage? Zhou Fan and Tian began to bicker. Zhao Xianyuan looked at Han Tuo and asked, Why didn't you come to the hidden sect? Han Tuo said, The sect master of the hidden sect asked me to go back in 1,000,000 years. He wants me to become a pseudo-sage first. Dao Sovereign and the other 2 didn't reveal Han Ju's identity, including his name. After all, Han Ju didn't reveal his identity when he was in the chaotic domain. Dao Sovereign shook his head and said, Your surname is also Han. I thought that master would be moved. What a pity. Han Ju indeed had rules. Without reaching the pseudo-sage realm, one was not allowed to go out. Now this rule was extended to the outside world. It was normal. Han Tuo asked curiously, The name of the hidden sect master begins with Han? Zhou Fan glared at Dao Sovereign and scolded him. Don't speak nonsense. How can you reveal the name of a sage? Dao Sovereign knew that he had said something wrong, and couldn't help but shake his head. Zhao Xianyuan smiled. Don't ask. There are many people with the surname Han. We can't let all the disciples with the surname Han acknowledge our master as their ancestor, right? We can't build relationships randomly. Han Tuo nodded. Tian snorted. So what if he's a sage? I'll become a sage sooner or later. Brothers, recently, someone pretended to have the chaotic physique, but didn't enter here. Should we go and deal with them together? They're in the heavenly race. Zhao Xianyuan said angrily. You're really a loyal dog of the demons. You're taking the opportunity to let us deal with the heavenly race? Don't you know that the hidden sect is behind them? Stunned, Tian asked in surprise. The hidden sect supports the heavenly race? Why didn't I know? Han Tuo said helplessly. I already know. You fight all day and the subordinates around you fawn on you. How can you understand the real world? Tian did not say anything. If anyone said anything about him, he would retort. Only towards Han Tuo would he not refute. Apart from being good friends, Han Tuo had also saved his life. 1,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. Han Ju discovered that ever since he subdued heavenly venerate Wuxia, there had been no more trouble. To him, time passed very quickly. Han Ju's cultivation level kept increasing, and he was getting closer and closer to the late-stage primordial chaos zenith heaven golden immortal realm. How wonderful! How good would it be if it could continue like this? Han Ju opened his eyes and thought happily. Peace had better last until he was invincible. Han Ju checked his emails. He didn't know how his recent friends were doing. Your good friend Immortal Emperor Samsara was cursed by a mysterious curse. Your good friend Evil Heavenly Emperor returned to the immortal world and was expelled by your good friend Xiaoxilai. He was severely injured. Your disciple Zhou Fan was attacked by Jie School cultivators. X12309. Your grand disciple Feng Liang was attacked by the heavenly race's immortal gods X63. Your good friend Xiaoxilai was cursed by a mysterious curse. Your good friend Emperor Xiao has cursed too many times. His Dao heart is in chaos. Your good friend Shi Du Dao was attacked by your good friend Li Daokong. Your disciple Ji Xianxian was cursed by a mysterious curse. This Emperor Shao, he actually pretended to be the Dark Forbidden Lord and cursed people everywhere. Aren't you making me take the blame for you? Hanju was unhappy. When the sages mentioned the curse, they would definitely think of the Dark Forbidden Lord. Although no one guessed that he was the Dark Forbidden Lord, he was still unhappy. After all, the Dark Forbidden Lord was Hanju's alternate identity. Fortunately, this fellow had suffered retribution. Hanju watched for a while. The commotion was endless, but it had nothing to do with him. Han Tua had already begun to take risks, but with the calamity around, Hanju was not worried about him. An hour later, Hanju visited Qiu Shilai in his dreams and asked about the reincarnation mystic realm. In the dream, Qiu Shilai replied, "I can't find the Dark Sage King. This fellow is too cautious." Hanju asked, "Why can't you destroy the reincarnation mystic realm?" "No, this mystic realm was once the territory of the Heavenly Dao race's dragon race. The providence is still there. If it's destroyed and the Heavenly Dao is incomplete, the forces outside the Heavenly Dao will surge in." "I see. Then you have to strictly guard this place. The Dark Sage King will attack sooner or later." "Yes, I've asked Li Muyi. The Dark Sage King is indeed powerful. If not for the providence of the Heavenly Dao in the Kiliacosm world, he would have died in the Dark Sage King's hands. I'll cultivate well and fight him in the future. Before that, you can't be negligent." "Don't worry." Hanju left the dream. For some reason, Qiu Shilai's attitude made him feel very uneasy. Qiu Shilai was very respectful to him, but he was a little perfunctory. Recently, Qiu Shilai had been very well behaved. It was unknown what he was doing. Hanju consumed 4 billion years of his lifespan. He was relieved after confirming that Qiu Shilai couldn't kill him. "I want to know when the Dark Sage King will attack the immortal world. 50 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue?" "Continue? In about 5 billion years, so long?" That was settled. Hanju wasn't even 100 million years old now. "I'll have reached the Great Dao Sage realm after 5 billion years no matter what, right? What I have to do now is not curse the Dark Sage King, lest this fellow gets desperate and forcefully attacks the Heavenly Dao ahead of time, just like those ambitious people who faced the previous calamity." Hanju secretly decided he couldn't use the Book of Misfortune casually in the future. Hanju stopped thinking and looked outside the Taoist temple. A disciple had been kneeling for a long time. Long Hao. Ever since he returned to the hidden sect, Long Hao's personality had changed. He had become more mature and did not speak as much as before. This was the first time he looked for Hanju alone after returning. Chapter 566 Evil Heavenly Emperor's Change, Dao Ancestors' Fiend Body. Chapter 566 Evil Heavenly Emperor's Change, Dao Ancestors' Fiend Body Come in. Hearing Hanju's voice, Long Hao looked happy. He immediately stood up and walked into the Taoist temple. He knelt in front of Hanju and bowed respectfully. Currently, he was already at the 6th mystic divine origin and was very close to the Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Realm. His talent was outstanding, but after experiencing the immeasurable calamity, his providence had been suppressed. Hao Tian flew out of Long Hao's body and said, "This kid's cultivation level is stuck at the 6th mystic divine origin. I suspect that someone has done something to him. Help take a look." Long Hao looked up, his eyes filled with hope. Hanju probed Long Hao's soul with his sage sense. Really? This power was hidden very deeply and imprisoned Long Hao's Dao fruit. Wait, isn't this the Heavenly Emperor's dermic powers? Hanju's expression did not change, but he was surprised. Thinking about it carefully, it was difficult to judge the Heavenly Emperor's attitude towards Long Hao. He said that he doted on Long Hao, but he didn't pass the Heavenly Emperor position to him. He said that he hated Long Hao, but he entrusted this son to Hanju as well. The Heavenly Emperor had so many sons. After the calamity ended, only Long Hao survived. No matter what the Heavenly Emperor thought, since Long Hao came to find Hanju, he had no choice but to attack. Perhaps this force was to protect Long Hao from being possessed by Hao Tian, but it was impossible to possess him under Hanju's eyes. With a thought, The Heavenly Emperor's dermic powers that imprisoned Long Hao's Dao fruit dissipated. In an instant, Long Hao felt relieved. He looked at him in surprise and asked, "Master you?" Hanju replied, "Yes, go back and cultivate well." Long Hao hurriedly kowtowed and left. Hao Tian also bowed. After leaving the Taoist temple, Hao Tian sighed. "Your master is really powerful. I feel that he has already surpassed those high and mighty sages." If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. Long Hao smiled proudly. "Nonsense. My master ended the heavenly devil calamity. Even the sages are convinced." Hao Tian shook his head and laughed. He felt that Long Hao was the luckiest in his life to have acknowledged Hanju as his master. Otherwise, he would have long been possessed by him and would have died in the calamity. On the other side, Hanju was about to continue cultivating when the Heavenly Emperor sent him a dream. He should be called the Evil Heavenly Emperor now. Hanju accepted the Evil Heavenly Emperor's dream. This time, the dream was not the forest outside the Jade Pure Sacred Sect, but a barren land covered in corpses. The sky was very high and covered in dark clouds. It was extremely oppressive. Hanju saw the Evil Heavenly Emperor standing on a small mountain made of bones. The Evil Heavenly Emperor looked down at him and said, "Why did you get rid of Long Hao's dermic powers seal?" Hanju said, "I don't know what your majesty wants. I thought you wanted to protect him. Now that he's safe, I'll remove it and let his cultivation no longer have an obstacle." The Evil Heavenly Emperor stared at him coldly. Evil Heavenly Emperor's favorability towards you has decreased. Current favorability, 3 stars, Hanju sighed in his mind. He asked, "You don't like Long Hao? Why did you ask me to take him in as my disciple, then?" Evil Heavenly Emperor said, "It's not that I don't like Long Hao, it's just that I don't like Hao Tian. The stronger Long Hao is now, the stronger Hao Tian is. The two of them are the same." Hanju was silent. As expected, Evil Heavenly Emperor asked, "Look around. What do you feel?" Hanju said, "The Heavenly Tao is really good." Yes, compared to the Heavenly Tao, this place is even more terrifying than the Netherworld. This is the deity realm of the ruins of End. Fortunately, I didn't go to the deity realm of the ruins of End. No, you should come. You can only become stronger here. If you stay in the Heavenly Tao, you will stop at the Sage Realm and won't be able to advance anymore. I've witnessed the Battle of Freedom sages previously. Their words can become reality. They can change the battle that has already happened with a word. Don't you want that power? I want it, but I haven't reached the peak of a sage yet. I don't have to take the risk for the time being. True. The Evil Heavenly Emperor was speechless. Hanju was nervous. Their words could become reality. They could even change the past. Was this time travel? Or was it directly determined through fate? The deity realm of the ruins of End was really dangerous. Hanju saw that the Evil Heavenly Emperor was silent and couldn't help but ask with concern, "How's His Majesty recently?" "It's all right. I hope that you won't be too close to Hao Tian. If possible, I hope that you can destroy him." The Evil Heavenly Emperor shook his head. Hanju said, "I'll consider it. If your Majesty is in trouble, if I can help you, feel free to ask." The dream ended. Hanju opened his eyes and frowned. The Evil Heavenly Emperor's state was getting stranger and stranger. Even though he was not yet a sage, it still made Hanju uneasy. It seemed that the inferior strange deity and the inauspicious evil had a huge effect on him. As for destroying Hao Tian, Hanju wouldn't do anything for the time being. He had no reputation. Besides, Hao Tian's favorability towards him was high. Hanju could only wait for Hao Tian to make a mistake before helping the Heavenly Emperor kill this fellow. No matter what, he was closer to the Heavenly Emperor. If Hao Tian had always been loyal, there was no choice. If he killed him for no reason, what would the other disciples think? Hanju stopped thinking and focused on cultivating. Spring passed and autumn came. The stars spun endlessly. Another 3,000 years passed. Hanju had OCD and deliberately went out of seclusion after hitting a round number. He opened his eyes and began to check his emails. There were attacks, opportunities, mysterious curses, and other fortuitous encounters. An email attracted Han Ju's attention. Your good friend Emperor Shao left the heavenly Tao. Your good friend Emperor Shao received guidance from a mysterious mighty figure and began to leave the heavenly Tao's providence. Han Ju checked Emperor Zhao's portrait and discovered that his cultivation didn't decrease. In other words, he was not weakened but wanted to become stronger. Could it be that he wanted to imitate Li Muyi and jump out of the heavenly Tao sage's identity? No. The mysterious mighty figure should be an even stronger existence. Han Ju frowned and felt that he needed to calculate to prevent himself from being plotted against. I want to know who's guiding Emperor Shao. 70 billion years of lifespan will be consumed. Do you want to continue? Continue. A figure appeared in Han Ju's mind, and a line of words appeared in front of him. Luo Ho, perfected freedom sage, ancestor of the devil race, immeasurable emperor, son of the heavenly Tao, Tao ancestor's fiend body. Han Ju's expression became strange. He had heard of Luo Ho. His name was spread throughout the world, but the providence label behind this was very problematic. The devil ancestor Luo Ho was actually the son of the heavenly Tao, and it was even the Tao ancestor's fiend body. Everyone knew that the reason why the Tao ancestor stood out was to trample on the devil ancestor's position. That was also the heavenly Tao's first calamity, the battle of the Tao and devils. Could all of this be the Tao ancestor's self-directed show? Or had the Tao ancestor subdued Luo Ho? Han Ju wanted to continue calculating the relationship between Luo Ho and the Tao ancestor. It involves an existence that surpasses the system's limits. It cannot be deduced. Han Ju had no choice but to look at Luo Ho again. He felt that the other party was about to make a comeback. These heavenly Tao sages all had powerful backgrounds. Fortunately, Han Ju didn't kill them directly. Forget it. Even if something happened, they would fight it out. There was no need for him to charge in. Han Ju stood up and decided to go out and preach the Tao to eliminate any distracting thoughts. At the same time, in the extreme north of the immortal world, dense cracks suddenly appeared on the endless ice land. It quickly expanded, and wisps of terrifying black aura rose from below. Chapter 567 Su Qi Revives, Seeing the Light of Day. Chapter 567 Su Qi Revives, Seeing the Light of Day from high above. The endless glaciers seemed to have shattered like a mirror. Countless cracks expanded into interconnected canyons. The black qi that dissipated became a vast mist that dispersed the white between heaven and earth. The ground began to shake violently, as if something huge was about to break through the surface. At this moment, the clouds were pierced by golden light. After the clouds dispersed, figures emitting dazzling light appeared above the clouds. They were the heavenly race's immortals. The leader was Feng Liang. Beside him were the heavenly god general and the divine general. Feng Liang looked down and asked, "Do you see anything?" The divine general frowned. "They look like devils but not devils. They look more like the Azura race that was wiped out in the previous calamity." The heavenly god general nodded. "That's right. It should be the Azura race." It's said that when Xue Mingyi died, he used a mysterious mystical power to make a comeback in the future. Feng Liang fell into deep thought. The glaciers in a radius of tens of millions of kilometers suddenly collapsed. The rising ice mist pushed into the sky. It was extremely spectacular and shocking. In the boundless fog, he could vaguely see a terrifying figure. It was difficult to tell its true body. Feng Liang waved his hand and said, "Capture this evil thing." The divine general and the heavenly god general immediately rushed down. The other immortals followed closely behind. In the 100-peak immortal river, Han Ju had just started preaching for less than a year. He suddenly felt a vast aura coming from the extreme north. It was at least a pseudo-sage, and was no inferior to Shi Dao. Han Ju didn't stop preaching. As he spoke, he looked into the distance. Feng Liang led the team, and was forcefully suppressed by the mysterious existence. The situation was critical. Han Ju had no intention of helping. Feng Liang was not his son. Since he was wandering outside, he should pay the price. Han Ju couldn't protect every disciple of the hidden sect. Furthermore, Feng Liang had never returned. If not for his favorability not decreasing, he would have suspected that Feng Liang had already betrayed the sect. Before long, Li Daokong rushed to the 13th heaven to provide assistance. A world-shattering battle was about to take place. After thousands of years, Li Daokong had become much stronger. His comprehension of the 10,000 life sword had deepened and was on par with the mysterious existence. Since it was a draw, Li Daokong would not lose. Hanju began to focus on the lecture. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. 100 years passed. Most of the disciples had improved after 100 years of preaching, but the personal disciples' cultivation levels had not increased noticeably. Hanju had already taught them the great Tao of extreme origin more than 10 times. They had already comprehended what they needed to. It was very difficult to forcefully comprehend anything else. Unconsciously, potential and comprehension were like the shackles of the heavenly Tao suppressing the hidden sect disciples. There was no deity realm among the unnamed disciples yet. The strongest was only a rank 7 immortal emperor. At this rate, only one pseudo-sage would appear among a million unnamed disciples. Hanju thought as he returned to the Taoist temple. He sat on the 36th grade reincarnation world destruction Black Lotus and began to check his emails. At this moment, he suddenly felt something and closed his eyes. In the primordial world, Suchi was calling him. Hanju's voice sounded. What is it? It had been some time since he had become a chaotic fiend celestial. Suchi's body had already condensed and was no different from a living being. Master, when can I go out? The chaotic chi here can no longer help me grow. Suchi hurriedly replied with a nervous tone. After all, he had died before. He was worried that Hanju would not let him out again. Hanju indeed thought so. Can you control bad luck now? Yes. Hanju sensed carefully. Suchi did restrain himself very well and didn't leak it. He began to consider. Suchi was nervous, afraid that Hanju would not agree. He recalled the mistakes he had made and felt even less confident. If he was Hanju, he wouldn't let him out either. Reincarnation couldn't wash away sins. Suddenly, Suchi felt his vision blur. His feet suddenly landed on the ground, and the surrounding scene turned into a Taoist temple. The divine light of the sun and moon yin-yang protection caused him to squint his eyes. Master! Suchi knelt down excitedly, his voice trembling. How many years had it been? He finally saw Hanju with his own eyes. Such a long separation was not a lifetime in the mortal world, but a heavenly Tao era. Hanju said, From now on, you are to stay in the 100-peak immortal river and not leave. Go out and find a place to stay. Suchi nodded, too excited to say anything. It was already good enough to see the light of day again. He naturally did not dare to think of complete freedom. After walking out of the Taoist temple, Suchi looked at the blinding sunlight and cried, I'm alive again. This time, I won't be a pawn anymore. Suchi clenched his fists, his shoulders trembling from excitement. Zhangju, Cao Cao, and the Crimson Fox looked at him with strange expressions. Suchi sensed their existence and smiled at them before walking up to communicate. Zhangju and Cao Cao ignored him, but the Crimson Fox was very passionate. The Crimson Fox was a little demon beast that Hanju had taken in when he was training in the mortal world. It had come to the 100-peak immortal river and had been cultivating obediently. It had just broken through to the grand unity true immortal realm not long ago. After chatting for a while, Suchi left to visit the other disciples. Soon, the personal disciples learned that Suchi had revived. All the personal disciples were shocked. Impossible. Wasn't Suchi dead? They knew that Suchi had ended the previous immeasurable calamity. Even Li Xianao came to see him. All the personal disciples gathered under the Fusang tree. They surrounded Suchi and asked him questions. Master revived you? Do you remember what you did? How did you destroy all living beings? You're too strong. After using the Tao destruction mystical power, how did you escape the destruction of the heavenly Tao? It doesn't make sense. The disciples were all surprised. The black hell chicken even thought that he only had Suchi's appearance. Suchi sighed. I don't know why. After I died, I was in a deep sleep until I woke up. When I heard Master's voice, I thought he must have saved me. Li Xianao clicked his tongue in wonder. Even the heavenly Tao calamity can be reversed. Could Sect Master really be the manifestation of the Tao ancestor? He had always heard the Black Hell Chicken say that Hanju was the reincarnation of the Tao ancestor. He didn't believe it, but on careful thought it really made sense. After the Tao ancestor disappeared, the timing of Hanju's rise was too coincidental. Su Qi said, "From now on, I'll stay here and cultivate. I won't go out again. As for everything in the past, I hope that you won't tease me anymore. I don't feel any honor in doing that." He sighed. If not for him being forced to the end and being bewitched by a sage, why would he do that? Thinking about it now, he was filled with guilt. Dao's sovereign snorted. "I hope you really feel guilty." Zhao Xinyuan and Long Hao's expressions were also very ugly. They did not speak. In the previous calamity, many of their friends and relatives had died. Su Qi was the culprit. Even if he was bewitched by the sages, the three of them could not completely forget it. The Black Hell Chicken shouted, "Su Qi, let us torture you 100 times in the simulation trial. You can't fight back. Just treat it as us venting our anger for the previous calamity." Su Qi asked curiously, "What is the simulation trial?" Chapter 568 Tao Sovereign's Indignation, Continuous Revival. Chapter 568 Tao Sovereign's Indignation, Continuous Revival. After the Black Hell Chicken explained what the simulation trial was, Su Qi happily accepted its suggestion. When he left the Taoist temple, Hanju had already given him permission. Soon, the personal disciples pulled him into the simulation trial. They also wanted to know how strong Su Qi was, the person who ended the immeasurable calamity. Su Qi indeed did not fight back, but other than Tao Sovereign, no one could hurt him. Even Tao Sovereign couldn't kill Su Qi. How can this be? Tao Sovereign was shocked. He was a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. Su Qi was stronger than him just after revival? How? Su Qi was also very surprised. Tao Sovereign's aura made him think of the Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal he had encountered in the past. He didn't expect that he wouldn't die when facing such an expert. Su Qi, who had transformed into the Death Fiend Celestial, had already surpassed the heavenly Tao life form. He didn't have a chaotic physique, but he was truly a chaotic fiend celestial. The essence of his life was like Pangu before the creation of the world, but not as strong. Even Tao Sovereign couldn't kill him. This shocked all the personal disciples. Li Yao and Zhao Xianyuan also participated. Su Qi was not excited. Instead, he was very embarrassed. He knew that the Black Hell Chicken's suggestion was to resolve the grudge between him and the other disciples. But the situation had instead worsened. What should he do? He couldn't self-destruct. He was the Death Fiend Celestial, and represented the great Tao of death. He couldn't let himself die. Hanju witnessed the battle in the Taoist temple. When the disciples entered the simulation trial, he could watch the battle. Su Qi's performance satisfied him. As expected of a chaotic fiend celestial, he had encountered a chaotic fiend celestial in the past. It was Jade Emperor Zhou Yan. Although he had killed him, no one in the immortal world was his match back then. He was extremely powerful. Hanju also realized the change in the mentality of the other disciples, but he didn't interfere. Some grudges couldn't be appeased with a word from him. It happened to stimulate the other disciples to cultivate diligently. 100 years later, Hanju called Tao Sovereign over. Ever since he sparred with Su Qi, Tao Sovereign had begun to enter seclusion crazily. His state was not right. Tao Sovereign entered the Taoist temple and bowed. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. Hanju didn't ask anything. Instead, he talked about Su Qi's past. Tao Sovereign frowned and did not dare to be rude. He could only listen patiently. Hanju began to talk about how he met Su Qi and how he was plotted against by sage-fated secrets. Tao Sovereign had mixed emotions hearing the story. He had to admit that Su Qi was indeed pitiful. He had never been able to control his fate and had always been treated as a pawn. Su Qi has been burdened with bad luck since he was born. Other than the hidden sect, he has no friends or relatives. He has always been experiencing pain. The reason why he is stronger than you is not because his potential is better than yours, but because I gave him a body that surpasses all living beings. He's actually my test subject and was lucky to succeed, Hanju said slowly. A body that surpassed all living beings? Dao Sovereign couldn't help but ask. What body is that? He felt that Su Qi was stronger than his chaotic physique. He had once thought that the chaotic physique was the strongest physique. Now it seemed like a joke. Hanju said. When you reach the pseudo-sage realm, I will also reward you. As for Su Qi, I hope you won't blame him anymore. After all, no one can stop the sage's schemes. The true culprit is Sage Fated Secrets. Dao Sovereign took a deep breath and nodded. Hanju continued. Don't tell the other disciples about this, especially about Su Qi's body. I understand. Hanju sighed after Dao Sovereign left. He wondered if this kid would listen. If he really annoyed him, he would throw them all into the primordial heavenly prison and gain their absolute obedience. Although it was selfish, it was effective. Ellie outside the 33rd heaven, in the endless chaos, a lofty city was hidden in the mist like an ancient ferocious beast. Chaotic City. Zhou Fan stood on a platform at the top of a tall tower and looked into the distance. Following his gaze, a ball of red light in the depths of the chaos emitted an ominous and strange aura. This phenomenon had occurred for more than 5,000 years, and nothing had happened for the time being. However, for some reason, Zhou Fan felt that something extremely dangerous was hidden in the phenomenon. Not long after the heavenly devil calamity, the entire chaotic city did not let down its guard. At this moment, a figure appeared beside Zhou Fan. This person wore a dark gray Taoist robe. He had a handsome face and a jade sword at his waist. Zhou Fan, it's my turn. Go cultivate, the Taoist robed man said. Zhou Fan stared at him and said, Don't you think something is wrong? The Taoist robed man asked in surprise. What's wrong? It seems to be growing. The Taoist robed man couldn't help but look at the red ball of light in the depths of the chaos. He frowned. It was indeed becoming bigger. Although it was a very slow process, they could tell with careful observation with their cultivation. Should we inform the city lord? The Taoist robed man asked. Zhou Fan nodded. The Taoist robed man immediately vanished. Zhou Fan was still staring into the depths of the chaos when a voice suddenly sounded in his ears. Zhou Fan, come here. I'm waiting for you. This voice was extremely bewitching. Zhou Fan was momentarily stunned. He shook his head, wanting to stay awake, but the mysterious voice sounded again. Soon, Zhou Fan fell into a daze. He jumped and flew towards the red ball of light. His speed was extremely fast, and he quickly disappeared into the depths of the chaos. 700 years passed. Hanju ended his seclusion. He stood up, stretched his muscles, scanned the 100-peak immortal river with his sage sense. Su Qi and Dao Sovereign were both cultivating separately. It was quite harmonious. Currently, Su Qi lived near the Fusang tree and established a simple Taoist temple. Hanju retracted his sage sense and started to check his emails. Your disciple Zhou Fan was attacked by an inauspicious evil X-283. Your disciple Zhou Fan is protected by your good friend 7 Dao Sage. His injuries have recovered. Your good friend Evil Heavenly Emperor created the world and obtained great Dao merit. Your good friend Xiao Shilai has begun the Dao integration and has fused with the Heavenly Dao. Your good friend Shi Dudao was attacked by your good friend Li Daokong. Your good friend Pan Xian was suppressed by the ancient master of calamity and was severely injured. Your good friend Nuwa created a great Dao illusion, and her cultivation increased greatly. Your disciple Zhou Fan was attacked by a mysterious existence and died. Your disciple Zhou Fan was saved by your good friend 7 Dao Sage and regained his body and soul. What was wrong with Zhou Fan? Hanju pinched his fingers to deduce and couldn't help but be moved. Zhou Fan was no longer outside the 33rd heaven, or within the heavenly Dao. When did he leave the heavenly Dao? Hanju checked his emails and discovered that Zhou Fan had already left the heavenly Dao 700 years ago. All these years he had been ravaged, dying and reviving. It had to be said that the 7 Dao Sage was really powerful. He could revive Zhou Fan remotely even in the deity realm of the ruins of End. Hanju was far inferior to such a mystical power. Hanju asked silently, Where is Zhou Fan? 3 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? The cost of derivation rivaling a sage was probably related to the environment Zhou Fan was in. Hanju chose to continue. Chapter 569 60,000 Years Old. Freedom Slaughter Supreme Treasure. Chapter 569 60,000 Years Old. Freedom Slaughter Supreme Treasure. After choosing to continue, Hanju entered the illusion. He opened his eyes and came to an extremely dark and mysterious space. In front of him was a ball of red light that changed between light and dark. It was ghastly red. He saw Zhou Fan. Zhou Fan was inside the red ball of light. He was wrapped by black tentacles covered in spikes, leaving only his soul body. This was... Hanju frowned and looked up. This red ball of light was extremely vast. It was like a star field filled with a red aura. No living beings or souls could be seen. He looked at Zhou Fan. The black tentacles did not look like solid objects, they were more like illusions. But they were indeed absorbing Zhou Fan's soul power. Just as Hanju was wondering where this was, a line of words appeared in front of him. Paradise Purgatory, chaotic forbidden ground. It is formed by the will of an ancient chaotic fiend celestial. The consciousness of the person who enters will be immersed in the illusion of paradise, and will not be able to extricate himself until his soul and body are devoured. Formed by an ancient chaotic fiend celestial? Hanju frowned even more. The illusion shattered. He opened his eyes and asked, who plotted against Zhou Fan? 10 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. A figure appeared in Hanju's mind. Dark Sage King. Indeed, it's him. The only chaotic expert who had been coveting the heavenly Tao recently was the Dark Sage King. This fellow was courting death. Zhou Fan was the 7 Tao Sage's manifestation. Wasn't this a provocation towards 7 Tao Sage? From the lifespan consumed by derivation, it was impossible for the Dark Sage King to be a match for the 7 Tao Sage. Hanju put down his distracting thoughts and continued cultivating. It was really dangerous to leave the heavenly Tao. Anyway, Zhou Fan had the 7 Tao Sage's backing, so there was no need to trouble him to personally take action. Several decades later, detected that you are 60,000 years old, and your life has taken another step forward. You have the following choices. 1. Exit seclusion immediately, and preach to the heavens to snatch the heavenly Tao's providence. You can obtain a great Tao fragment. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website MyBox Novel. Thanks. 2. Cultivate in a low-profile manner and form your own Tao. Stay away from karma and trouble. You can obtain a great Tao fragment, a supreme treasure, and a heavenly Tao spirit stone. Hanju opened his eyes and sighed. Time passed really quickly. 50,000 years seemed like yesterday. The system became obedient and didn't let Hanju fall into a dilemma. However, the reward was too terrifying. Hanju silently chose the second option. You chose to cultivate in a low-profile manner and obtained a great Tao fragment, a supreme treasure, and a heavenly Tao spirit stone. Congratulations on obtaining the Freedom Supreme Treasure. Killing Tao Token. Killing Tao Token. Freedom Slaughter Supreme Treasure. Sacrificing lifespan and providence can allow you to kill enemies. Your words can become reality. You cannot kill living beings who have no karma with you. You are not allowed to use it unless you are in a battle. Hanju raised his eyebrows. How impressive. Hanju immediately took out the Killing Tao Token. This token was different from what he had imagined. It was more like an unsheathed sword. It was 3 feet long and completely blood red. Traces of light flowed around it. Holding this token, terrifying killing intent surged towards him, causing his black hair to flutter. Amazing! Hanju began to make it recognize him as its owner. Half a year later, he successfully subdued the Killing Tao Token. This was the first time he had worked so hard. If not for the system, he might not have been able to subdue this treasure at all, and might have even been devoured by it. Hanju immediately entered the simulation trial and started to use this treasure. There was no actual consumption of his lifespan in the simulation trial, so he could do whatever he wanted. Facing heavenly venerate Wuxia, he sacrificed 1 trillion years of his lifespan and spat out the word execution. Heavenly Venerate Wufa turned into dust on the spot. So powerful. Hanju's heart beat faster. Against ordinary sages, he didn't even need to sacrifice his lifespan to insta-kill them. Was this the Freedom Slaughter Supreme Treasure? Hanju's heart beat faster. It was equivalent to an alternate Book of Misfortune. However, the Book of Misfortune took the continuous path, while the Killing Dao token took the domineering path. The Book of Misfortune had wider uses, and could kill people subtly. However, the Killing Dao token had to be used in battle. Hanju couldn't hide in the Taoist temple and use it to plot against the enemy. Hanju began to challenge Ancestor Shitian. He was insta-killed even with the Killing Dao token. This was the case when he didn't dodge in the beginning. I'll directly sacrifice 300 sextillion years of my lifespan. Hanju thought silently. He entered the simulation trial again, and directly sacrificed his lifespan. Die! Hanju waved his token, and spat out a word. The Killing Dao token shook violently in his hand, and red light burst out. The high and mighty Ancestor Shitian suddenly turned to dust. Hanju was pleasantly surprised. Success? I can finally compete with a great Dao sage? At this moment, Hanju saw Ancestor Shitian's figure condense again and say, "Kill." Hanju died on the spot. He couldn't resist at all. Hanju opened his eyes looking terrified. I can't provoke Ancestor Shitian. Otherwise, even if I use the Freedom Supreme Treasure and sacrifice all my lifespan, I still won't be able to kill him. Hanju restrained himself. He almost became arrogant. He was grateful to Ancestor Shitian. Although the ancestor didn't know, he had always encouraged Hanju. He was a true sage. Hanju took out the Heavenly Dao Spirit Stone, and suddenly had a bold thought. Should he use it to upgrade the Killing Dao token this time? He immediately tried. Do not upgrade the Killing Dao token. Once this treasure upgrades to the Great Dao level, it will devour you and give birth to a Great Dao spirit. Hanju froze upon seeing this line of words that suddenly appeared. He almost got screwed. Dharma treasures could become spirits? Hanju had no choice but to obediently upgrade the Book of Misfortune. In the end, the Book of Misfortune was upgraded from a Heavenly Dao Supreme Treasure to a Freedom Numinous Treasure. Holding the book, Hanju could clearly feel that the aura of misfortune was very strong. Unknowingly, he had nurtured an extremely terrifying evil creature. Should I curse a sage to death to liven things up? Hanju had another thought. Forget it. He didn't want to attract another immeasurable calamity. It was good now. The sages didn't provoke him, and could still maintain the order of the Heavenly Dao, and protect the immortal world. If not for the sages managing the Heavenly Dao, how could Hanju cultivate in peace? It wasn't easy to determine if he was friend or foe. Hanju put away the Book of Misfortune, and perked up before continuing to cultivate. He was getting closer and closer to the late-stage primordial chaos, zenith heaven golden immortal realm. He was confident that he could break through in 10,000 years. After that, he would reach the perfected primordial chaos zenith heaven golden immortal realm within 100,000 years. This cultivation speed was alright. 33rd Heaven Buddhist Dao Field. In the hall, Qiushilai sat on the lotus throne. Golden light surrounded his body, forming a pillar of light that was holy and solemn. A figure appeared in front of him. I can feel that Hanju has become stronger again, the Heavenly Dao Spirit said in a low voice, its tone filled with uneasiness. Qiushilai did not open his eyes. It's not surprising. His potential is already ridiculous. Besides, I can't deal with him now. Let's wait for me to fuse the Dao. The Heavenly Dao Spirit said, even if you fuse the Dao, you might not be his match. Unless what? Unless you obtain the Dao Ancestor's power. The Dao Ancestor has been missing for a long time. Do you know where he is? I don't, but I know where his 3 corpse clones are. If you can obtain one, you can easily kill Hanju. Chapter 570 Zhou Fortuitous Encounter, Heaven and Earth Origin. Chapter 570 Zhou Fortuitous Encounter, Heaven and Earth Origin. After hearing the Heavenly Dao Spirit's words, Qiushilai was expressionless, but he was very disdainful inside. Did it think he was a 3-year-old child? So easy to deceive? In Qiushilai's eyes, The heavenly Tao spirit's methods were truly ridiculous. Its motives were too obvious. There was no need to guess. The heavenly Tao spirit said, Hanju's son's cultivation is becoming stronger and stronger. He can actually catch up to Etion. He will definitely become a huge problem in the future. If you don't dare to deal with Hanju, before you obtain the Tao ancestor's clone, you can think of a way to eliminate Hanju's son. I'll consider it. Xiao Shilai closed his eyes and continued his Tao integration. The heavenly Tao spirit did not say anything else and vanished from the hall. After obtaining the killing Tao token, Hanju didn't wander around or leave the Taoist temple to preach the Tao. Instead, he focused on cultivating. Time passed quickly. Another 2,000 years passed. On this day, Hanju checked his emails. Your disciple Zhou Fan has returned to the immortal world. He heaved a sigh of relief. The big shot was still stable and had saved his Dharma idol reincarnation. He looked up and saw Zhou Fan's other emails. Other than constantly dying and reviving, there were actually opportunities. Your disciple Zhou Fan has fused with the Paradise Purgatory's providence. His cultivation has increased greatly. Your disciple Zhou Fan has comprehended a great Tao mystical power. How impressive! As expected of the protagonist, Hanju looked up and saw that Zhou Fan had already returned to the chaotic city. This kid's cultivation had actually reached the mid-stage of the Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Realm. He had benefited from a disaster and was even comparable to Tao Sovereign. Hanju looked at Tao Sovereign. Ever since he was stimulated by Su Qi, Tao Sovereign had been in seclusion every day and cultivated very crazily. He was also getting closer and closer to the late-stage Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Realm. Hanju was very satisfied with this. Tao Sovereign was even more reckless than Zhou Fan in the past. It was naturally a good thing that he could be so persistent now. Hanju continued to look at the disciples under the Fusang tree. He suddenly stood up and disappeared. He came to the Fusang tree. The disciples stood up and bowed when they saw him. Hanju ignored them and looked at the Fusang tree. The tree was still so majestic and looked very calm. There was nothing unusual, but Hanju felt that the Fusang tree was absorbing a strange power that came from the hundreds of space-time vortexes it had formed. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website MyBox Novel. Thanks. Hanju asked with a voice transmission. What are you doing? The Fusang tree panicked. Hanju waved his sleeve and moved all the nearby disciples away. He set up a barrier around them and asked the Fusang tree alone. The tree's action would expose its location to hundreds of worlds. Most importantly, it had not asked Hanju. Frightened, the Fusang tree hurriedly said, I just feel that I can absorb their power and become stronger. So I'm doing this. Is something wrong? Didn't I say not to expose your location? I won't, I'm just absorbing power. The power of the world is surging towards you. The mighty cultivators can't sense the direction of the power? Why didn't you tell me? I want to transform. You don't seem to want me to transform. Hanju frowned. It's not that I don't want to transform. It's just that you're the heavenly Tao divine tree and can't transform for the time being. His words were the truth. Now that the Tao field was filled with spirit qi, the Fusang tree was no longer very useful. The Fusang tree said aggrievedly, Then I'll stop. Hanju probed the tree with his sage sense and checked the power it had absorbed. It looked like providence but also like merit. It was difficult to tell. This was the first time Hanju had encountered such a force. It was strong but not ferocious. It flowed like endless warm water in the Fusang tree. What power is this? 3 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Heaven and earth origin. A source of power that can only be born in a place with its own rules. If the heaven and earth origin is sucked dry, this world will collapse. So terrifying? Hanju suddenly felt that the Fusang tree was not a divine tree, but an evil tree. If it absorbed hundreds of worlds like this, how many living beings would die? Hanju said. If you continue to do this, all the living beings in the world might die. The Fusang tree said indifferently, I can choose not to absorb everything. Besides, the spirit qi I emit is also absorbed by living beings. Why can only others absorb me, and I can't absorb them? Hanju frowned. These words were very reasonable, but they felt strange. Under the sun and moon yin-yang protection's light, the Fusang tree couldn't see Hanju's expression. But once he went silent, it felt very uneasy. It was most afraid of him. Hanju saw that the Fusang tree was trembling slightly, and the leaves were rustling. His heart softened. Perhaps he was too cautious, and too harsh on the Fusang tree. Other than the Kiliacosm world, you can absorb the power of other worlds, but you can't go overboard. The longer they exist, the more helpful they will be to you, Hanju said. With the Dark Sage King in the Kiliacosm world, it was very easy to find his Tao field. The Fusang tree said happily, "Don't worry. I can sense danger everywhere. I've never absorbed the power of the Kiliacosm world before." Hanju nodded and removed the barrier. He then turned around and left. Hanju sighed after returning to the Taoist temple. His disciples had already grown up and had their own thoughts and opinions. Time passed really quickly. Even a tree had its own opinions. Hanju checked his interpersonal relationships. He was relieved after confirming that the favorability of the disciples didn't decrease. He was about to cultivate when a notification appeared in front of him. Li Muyi wants to visit you in your dreams. Do you want to accept? What was this fellow trying to do? Another request for help? Hanju wanted to refuse, but on second thought, it was fine to listen to what he had to say. What if he had important information? Hanju chose to accept and entered the dream. The sage Tao field was as bright as a paradise. Li Muyi came in front of him and said, "Fellow Taoist Han, long time no see. How's your cultivation?" Hanju said politely, "It's all right. Why are you looking for me?" The heavenly Tao has developed intelligence. It's the sign of the great Tao immeasurable calamity. Li Muyi sighed, his eyes filled with uneasiness. Hanju already knew about this, so he was not surprised. Li Muyi continued, "The heavenly Tao is impartial because it is emotionless. In front of it, all living beings are equal. For example, if the heavenly Tao developed intelligence, it might have greed. This is an unprecedented calamity. In the past calamities, we sages could join forces to destroy them. But now, we can't deal with the heavenly Tao. The situation is troublesome." Hanju asked, "Then, what do you need me to do? You used your strength to attain the Tao, and are not controlled by the heavenly Tao. Is there a way to destroy the heavenly Tao's intelligence without harming it? You're thinking too much. The heavenly Tao was created by giant god Pengu, and has been consolidated by the Tao ancestor. Even 10,000 of me are not the heavenly Tao's match. Then, can you visit Ancestor Shitian and ask him to help? The ancestor has returned?" Hanju hesitated. "My relationship with the ancestor is average. How can I persuade him? Find someone else." Ancestor Shitian was too strong. Hanju didn't want to meet him. Chapter 571, The Appearance of 10,000 Immortal Emperors, Shocking the Heavenly Tao. Chapter 571, The Appearance of 10,000 Immortal Emperors, Shocking the Heavenly Tao. Hearing Hanju's rejection, Li Muyi was not anxious. He had already expected it. He only continued to persuade. "I have a bold plan. If you join forces with me, the human school and the hidden sect will split the heavenly Tao equally in the future. The two of us will control the rules of the heavenly Tao." Hanju said, "I'm not that ambitious. This is not ambition. This is to save the heavenly Tao and all living beings in the world. I'm not that capable. If we join forces, we can definitely do it." Hanju cursed silently. How ridiculous was this guy? Hanju said. "Then what do you want to do?" Li Muyi said. "Qiu Shilai is currently attempting the Tao integration. Although he's hiding it very well, I plan to support the hidden sect to occupy the heavenly Tao's providence. Even if Qiu Shilai is attempting the Tao integration, with your command over the hidden sect, you can directly disband them before the battle begins. Of course, you will pretend to disband and eliminate the hidden sect's providence. The heavenly Tao's providence will end up in chaos, and order will be lost. Qiu Shilai's cultivation will definitely plummet, eliminating him, and the heavenly Tao spirit in his body." Hanju chuckled. What a good plan. Killing two birds with one stone. Hanju almost asked. Do you think I'm stupid? He had to hold back. How could a sage be crude? He said. May I ask what the sage will do? Are you only supporting the hidden sect? Did the hidden sect still need Li Mui's support? Screw off. I'll directly let the human school join the hidden sect. When dealing with Qiu Shilai, I'll also participate. How about that? Li Mui replied calmly. This was very sincere. Regardless of whether it was true or not, if the human school joined the hidden sect, it would be able to suppress all the sage sects in reputation. Unfortunately, Hanju didn't want to take in the human school, and he even hated it. The human school's foundation was truly deep. The time it had been in existence was immeasurable. It was even older than the immortal world, let alone the ancient human school in the deity realm of the ruins of End. The human school in the immortal world was more like the outer sect of the true human school. Hanju said, I'll consider this. Li Mui frowned. If you say that you want to consider, it means that you refuse. What are you dissatisfied with? You don't want to find the ancestor or cooperate with me. Then tell me away. The heavenly Tao has a spirit. If news of this spreads, all living beings will definitely be terrified. From now on, it will no longer be a situation where sages restrain each other. Instead, it will be the heavenly Tao's dictatorship. Your existence is definitely a thorn in the heavenly Tao's eyes, even if you once saved it. Hanju said, I just don't want to become everyone's target. Find another sage. With that, Hanju left the dream. 33rd Heaven, Human School Tao Field. Li Mui opened his eyes and frowned. This fellow is really stubborn. I don't believe that you really don't have any ambitions. Li Mui muttered to himself, feeling very unhappy. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. This was not the first time he begged Hanju. The latter had never given him face. Since Hanju was unwilling to agree, he could only find other sages. Inside the Taoist temple, Hanju snorted and muttered, trying to trick me again. Do I need you to kill the heavenly Tao's spirit? He already had a plan. After Qiu Shilai succeeded in his Tao integration, he would capture him and bring him to the primordial heavenly prison. Then he would definitely purify him and eliminate the heavenly Tao spirit. It had to be said that the absolute purification of the primordial heavenly prison was too impressive. Hanju even started to look forward to Qiu Shilai's successful Tao integration. Continue cultivating. He had to break through as soon as possible. Hanju could already fight with a freedom sage. When he broke through again, he would definitely be able to kill some weaker freedom sages. After thinking, Hanju closed his eyes and focused on cultivating. Time passed. Life was like a dream. A mighty cultivator dreamed of 3,000 things. The empire in the mortal world changed and mountains and rivers shifted. When heroes appeared in the immortal world, the mortal worlds below also began to exert their strength. Ascenders appeared one after another and slaughtered their way to the immortal world, revealing their sharpness. At this moment, the living beings in the immortal world realized that other than the immortal world, other worlds were also very powerful. At the same time, they also felt that the mortal worlds were suitable for living and cultivation. In just 3,000 years, more than 10 million living beings had ascended from the mortal world. The number of living beings in the immortal world had also reached a very impressive level, like the immortal world before the calamity. Hanju opened his eyes. He was already very close to breaking through. Awesome. Hanju couldn't wait to break through. But Han Zuetian had already asked to see him more than 10 times. Hanju hadn't received him for several years. Now was his chance. He let Han Zuetian in. Even before he spoke, Hanju knew what he wanted to say. It was time to send talents out or recruit new disciples. Indeed, another 10,000 in-name disciples' cultivation levels had reached the limit and could no longer increase. Hanju allowed them to leave and serve the heavenly race. Grandmaster, should we recruit another batch of disciples? Many cities were established near the 100-peak Immortal River. I remember that the nearby 3 regions have long been divided by the heavenly race to us. Now that they are occupied by other races and sects, it's really unpleasant. Han Zuetian asked expectantly. Han Ju said calmly, I won't take in any disciples for the time being. The hidden sect wants the best. As for the territory outside, it's nothing. But, no buts. You can leave. I'm not satisfied with your cultivation. You have to reach the deity realm in 10,000 years. Otherwise, don't even think about leaving. 10,000 years? Yes. Yes, Han Zuetian left in fear. This kid had already reached the Emperor realm not long ago. But to cross the threshold of a rank 9 immortal emperor in 10,000 years, he felt that it was almost impossible. Several days later, Han Ju sent out the 10,000 unnamed disciples Han Zuetian had arranged. These were all immortal emperors. 10,000 immortal emperors left the Dao field. Immediately attracting the heavenly lightning, Han Ju clearly sensed that the heavenly Dao's providence was changing. An immortal emperor was nothing, but 10,000 was truly ridiculous. The 10,000 unnamed disciples of the hidden sect looked up at the lightning and smiled proudly. They had cultivated diligently for tens of thousands of years, just for today to appear. Let's go to the heavenly race. The leader of the unnamed disciples shouted. The 10,000 disciples were like sharp arrows breaking through the thunderclouds. At the same time, 33rd heaven, Buddhist Dao field. Qiu Shilai opened his eyes and frowned. He muttered, another 10,000 immortal emperors. How many immortal emperors are hiding in the hidden sect? He remembered that the number of deity realm disciples in the hidden sect was also very exaggerated. Why were there so many powerful disciples in the seemingly low-profile hidden sect? He had been observing the 100-peak immortal river. It had been tens of thousands of years since it had recruited disciples. Could these disciples be Khanate life forms that Han Ju had casually recruited back then? That was impossible. Even Khanate life forms had differing potentials. To become an immortal emperor after tens of thousands of years was already the potential of a genius. At this moment, the heavenly Dao spirit appeared and said, the heavenly Dao's providence has changed again. Because of these 10,000 hidden sect immortal emperors, the overall providence of the heavenly Dao has increased greatly. If you want to deal with the hidden sect, don't force yourself. The heavenly Dao's rules have already begun to approach them. Qiu Shilai said angrily, you can't control the heavenly Dao and still call yourself the heavenly Dao. I even suspect that you're not the heavenly Dao's true spirit. How can that be? The heavenly Dao spirit said angrily. Qiu Shilai sighed. For some reason, he felt that something was wrong with the heavenly Dao spirit recently. It became more and more vulgar. It did not have the transcendence of the heavenly Dao, and was more like a mortal. Chapter 572 Late Stage Primordial Chaos Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Realm. Chapter 572 Late Stage Primordial Chaos Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Realm. The news that the hidden sect had sent 10,000 immortal emperors to reinforce the heavenly race spread throughout the immortal world in a short 100 years. All the forces were shocked. How many mighty cultivators were hidden in the hidden sect? The happiest was naturally Ji Xianshan. The mighty figures above the deity realm were usually busy cultivating, so immortal emperors were the core force. The hidden sect had given them thousands of immortal emperors before. The heavenly race had more than 20,000 immortal emperors, and they were the number one in the immortal world. Ji Xianshan didn't disappoint the 10,000 immortal emperors of the hidden sect. After arranging them, he started a war. These immortal emperors had cultivated diligently in the 100-peak immortal river for tens of thousands of years. They had finally come out and naturally did not want to continue cultivating. They wanted to pursue other things and enrich themselves. Wasn't cultivation meant to be stronger than others? It was best to realize the value of one's strength in war. For a time, the heavenly race fought everywhere. More and more factions lowered their heads. 1,000 years later, the heavenly race had officially declared war on the demons. The Golden Crow Demon Emperor had a backbone and fearlessly accepted the challenge. The battle between the two races was definitely the most intense battle after the heavenly Dao restarted. It spread throughout dozens of regions. On a hill, Han Tua and Etian stood side by side as they looked at the sky. They could see immortals as majestic as mountains suppressing the demons. Han Tua sighed. Why? You're not a demon yourself. Why are you fighting for the demons? Etienne smiled. I'm not fighting for the demons. I'm just using their name to fight for Providence. If I'm alone, I'll probably make countless enemies. Now that I'm with the demons, the heavenly race still wants to recruit me. Han Tuo rolled his eyes. You really want to learn from the great sage Heaven's equal and become the horse keeper of the immortal gods? Etienne glared at him. What do you mean by being the horse keeper of the immortal gods? I'm their true master. This was destined from the beginning. Hehe. You make it sound like you're really the son of the heavenly Tao. I told you long ago, but you didn't believe me. If you are the son of the heavenly Tao, why do you need my help occasionally? It's necessary to suffer. You're my brother. If you don't save me, who will? When I become the master of the heavenly Tao, I'll let you be on the same level as me. Well said. I'm not that ambitious. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website MyBox Novel. Thanks. To be honest, why are you cultivating? Facing Etienne's question, Han Tuo fell silent. Any living being had its own goals in cultivation. Han Tuo recalled himself and found it difficult to answer. He couldn't help but recall his conversation with his father many years ago. He could no longer remember his father's appearance, but that night, his father had taught him a lot. Han Tuo took a deep breath and said, I just want to cultivate. If I'm strong, I'll definitely help the human race. But what I want the most is to be the strongest. He thought of how he had been rejected by the sect master of the hidden sect. He thought of his wife's death and the expectations of his parents. His eyes became firm. As expected of my brother. It's just as I wanted. You can leave first. Don't worry, I won't die here. The heavenly race can't and won't kill me. Etienne patted his shoulder and smiled. Han Tuo frowned and hesitated for a moment before nodding. He turned around and left, quickly flying towards the horizon. A voice sounded in his ears. This kid might really be the son of the heavenly Tao. His fate is extremely strange. I can't even see through him. It was the Calamities Vengeful. Ever since he subdued the Calamities Vengeful, Han Tuo had relied on it many times to turn the situation around. The cultivation of a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal was absolutely a top expert in the current immortal world. Even a pseudo-sage couldn't insta-kill a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. Han Tuo asked in his mind, where should we go next? Calamities Vengeful said, I think you need to resolve your inner problem. Otherwise, you will find it difficult to enter the deity realm. How? Go to the mortal world. Yes. Hehe, you'll understand when you go. Hanju opened his eyes and smiled. He entered seclusion for another 1,300 years. He finally had the chance to break through. He did not immediately do it though. Instead, he checked his emails and cared about his friends. Yes, not bad. No one died. Hanju saw an email. Your son Han Tuo has descended into the mortal world. Why did this kid go to the mortal world? Hanju immediately observed Han Tuo and raised his eyebrows. Han Tuo actually married and had children in the mortal world. He had a son and a daughter who were already 4 years old. Good kid, he actually imitated him. Han Tuo's bloodline was already sealed. It fused with mortals and passed down to the next generation. Although his potential was stronger than mortals, it was not that world-shattering. Hanju wasn't interested in his grandchildren. He watched for an hour and started to break through in seclusion. 490 years later, Hanju successfully broke through. This breakthrough took longer than before. This was normal. After all, this was the Sage Realm. Hanju checked his attributes list. Name: Hanju. Lifespan: 66,790/982 sextillion 90 quintillion 9 quadrillion 999 trillion 999 billion 999 million 999,999. Race: Primordial Fiend Celestial, Immeasurable Emperor. Cultivation: Late-stage Primordial Chaos Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Realm, Perfect Sage. Technique: Primordial Chaos Reincarnation Great Tao Heavenly Cycle Body Tempering, Great Tao of Life and Death, Great Tao of Karma, Great Tao of Extreme Origin. His lifespan was refreshed, increasing by nearly 3 times. More than 20,000 years had passed since his last breakthrough. Unknowingly, Hanju was already a 60,000 years old antique. After breaking through, his dermic powers soared. It took him 20 years to consolidate his cultivation. He used a few months to raise all his Sword Dao mystical powers to the limit. Hanju was about to cultivate the grand unity aspect, when an old immortal called him, outside the 100-peak immortal river. The old immortal wore a white robe, and had an immortal aura. Holding a horsetail whisk, he bowed towards the 100-peak immortal river. I'm the Golden Star Grand Immortal of the heavenly race. I'm here on the orders of the ancestor, to invite the hidden sect to participate in the heavenly peach banquet. His words were heard by all the disciples in the 100-peak immortal river. They were not unfamiliar with the heavenly race. The disciples who had left previously had all gone to reinforce the heavenly ancestor. So in their opinion, the heavenly race was a subsidiary force of the hidden sect. Hanju's voice sounded, when? In 100 years, in the 13th heaven. Yes, I know. The heavenly race welcomes the immeasurable merit divine might heavenly sage. The Golden Star Grand Immortal's attitude was very humble, giving Hanju enough face. Although he looked like this, his status in the heavenly race was not low. After waiting for a while, and confirming that Hanju didn't give any instructions, the Golden Star Grand Immortal left. Hanju called Li Xian'eo over. Li Xian'eo was still at the early stage Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal realm, and was already close to the mid-stage. Bring 2 disciples to the heavenly peach banquet in 100 years. Come back after the banquet ends, Hanju instructed. Li Xian'eo nodded. Do I choose randomly? Or do I choose from the personal disciples? Choose from the in-name disciples. Understood. Li Xian'eo left. The reason why Hanju chose from the in-name disciples was that he hoped to maintain the hidden sect's power. The personal disciples would be the hidden sect's face in the future, and couldn't be exposed early. After Li Xian'eo left, Hanju looked at the mortal world. Han Tua was still living in that mortal world. His descendants had passed down from generation to generation, and had already become an aristocratic family. However, Han Tua kept a low profile. The development of the Han family was not too strong. Chapter 573 Attack of the Dark Sage King? Chapter 573 Attack of the Dark Sage King? The current Han family had hundreds of disciples and thousands of servants. Other than Han Tua, the strongest was only at the nascent soul realm. The Han family seemed to not know Han Tuo's cultivation level, and was still in conflict with the other families in the same city. Hanju retracted his gaze and continued cultivating. He did not approve of the Han family, much less help them. Although they were related by blood, their feelings were close to strangers. Hanju only wanted to protect Han Tua. As for the Han family, it depended on whether Han Tua was willing to protect them. Although cultivation was boring, Hanju didn't want to find trouble for himself. He began to look forward to what chaotic fiend celestial dharma idols he could cultivate this time. 10 years later, Hanju cultivated 14 fiend celestial dharma idols. They were the strange fiend celestial, 10,000 layer fiend celestial, shattering fiend celestial, firmament fiend celestial, taiji fiend celestial, spoken dharma fiend celestial, silent fiend celestial, Tao resemblance fiend celestial, mental demon fiend celestial, formless fiend celestial, light devouring fiend celestial, shocking fiend celestial, rain devouring fiend celestial, and Tao stability fiend celestial. He should have continued cultivating, but something happened that interrupted his cultivation. He opened his eyes. In the west of the immortal world, at the end of the world, boundless black mist attacked from the dark forbidden zone. It was majestic and unstoppable. Dozens of mysterious cultivators suddenly appeared and joined forces to attack the black mist. However, their dermic powers dissipated completely when they touched the black mist. It was useless. What's happening? This mist is strange. Could it be that the heavenly devils are attacking again? Looks like I have to report it to the chaotic city. Third Junior, go to the chaotic city immediately. Alright, the disciples guarding the western world were from the Jie school. The cultivators were at least at the deity realm. The leader was even a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. However, even joining forces, they could not slow down the black mist at all. They were shocked. Hanju looked at the black mist sweeping towards the immortal world from afar and frowned. There was something wrong with the black mist. It was not a heavenly devil, but it looked similar. Could it be the Tao devils of the deity realm of the ruins of End? Hanju was very puzzled, but he had no intention of doing anything. Even if the sky collapsed, the other sages would hold it up. Indeed, if you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. That day, the South Extreme Heavenly Venerate and Emperor Shao rushed to the edge of the immortal world and used their supreme dermic powers to successfully resist the black mist's approach. However, they only resisted and could not disperse it. Qiu Shilai wants to visit you in your dreams. Do you accept? Qiu Shilai wants to visit you in your dreams. Do you accept? This fellow began to spam again. It had been a long time since this happened. It was probably related to the black mist outside the immortal world. Hanju thought for a moment, and still chose to accept it. After entering the dream, Qiu Shilai immediately said anxiously, "The Dark Sage King is attacking. You have to help. We Heavenly Tao sages are not his match." "The Dark Sage King?" Hanju asked. "Who said that?" "Li Mui. He was attacked by the Dark Sage King. He said that the Dark Sage King might be chasing after him." Really? Hanju did not believe it. He had calculated that the Dark Sage King was still far from attacking the immortal world. Really? All right. Hanju removed the dream, and his consciousness returned to reality. "I want to know the origins of the black mist attacking the immortal world. 70 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue?" "Continue." A figure appeared in Hanju's mind, and a line of words appeared in front of him. Luo Ho, perfected freedom sage, ancestor of the devil race, immeasurable emperor, son of the heavenly Tao, Tao ancestor's fiend body. Why was it him? Hanju was so frightened that he immediately sat down and didn't dare to go and help. How could he deal with a perfected freedom sage? Wait, how could Li Mui be mistaken? Could it be that Luo Ho was closely related to the Dark Sage King? Hanju continued to ask. Why are Qiu Shilai and Li Mui saying that the black mist attacking the immortal world is the Dark Sage King? 4 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Hanju entered the dream and came to Li Mui's Tao field. Li Mui and Qiu Shilai sat opposite each other with solemn expressions. Li Mui asked in a low voice, "Really?" "Yes, under the heavenly Tao spirit's lead. I have already found the Tao ancestor's fiend body. However, Luo Ho has his own will. For the Tao ancestor's sake, he's willing to help us eliminate Hanju. He only needs to lure him out," Qiu Shilai said in a low voice. Li Mui's eyes flickered. Qiu Shilai said, "Compared to me, Hanju is a greater threat. He alone is enough to overturn us sages. After I fuse with the heavenly Tao, I will transcend sooner or later. You and I will enter the deity realm of the ruins of End together. No matter what, we are still fellow disciples from the Tao sect." "What is Hanju? A chaotic fiend celestial?" Li Mui asked. "Then, how can we trick him to go out?" "I can tell now. Unless he has no choice, Hanju will never leave the immortal world. We will create another heavenly devil calamity and lure him out. In order to increase the credibility, say that it's your enemy, the Dark Sage King. No matter how strong the Dark Sage King is, he didn't kill you. Hanju should be able to judge." Qiu Shilai said seriously and smiled. Li Mui sighed. "You really see through him." Qiu Shilai smiled. "As long as he goes out, he will definitely die." The dream shattered. Hanju opened his eyes and almost cursed. "They actually plotted against me." However, it had to be said that this trap was indeed very strong and invulnerable. If Hanju didn't have the derivation function, he might have asked Qiu Shilai first. After confirming it, he might really attack the black mist to protect the immortal world. What a pity. You sages will never be able to outtweet me. Hanju's eyes turned ruthless. Great. Since you want to target me, don't blame me for being impolite. Hanju directly sent a dream to Li Mui. In the dream, Li Mui saw Hanju appear and couldn't help but stand up. "Is it really the Dark Sage King?" Hanju asked. Li Mui smiled bitterly. "That's right. He's very strong. I'm afraid only you can deal with him in the entire immortal world. What about Heavenly Venerate Wufa? Heavenly Venerate Wufa is not your match anyway. That's true. Hanju remained silent. Li Mui stared at him. Hanju asked again. Are you sure it's the Dark Sage King? Can I deal with him? Li Mui hesitated. The Dark Sage King should be similar to the previous Dao Heavenly Devil. I can't be sure that you can kill him, but only you have the strength. This fellow was actually pushing him by saying this. Hanju almost died of anger. As expected of a sage, he acted really well. I'll consider it. With that, Hanju left the dream. Without another word, he continued cultivating the grand unity aspect. He had to become stronger before dealing with these two dogs. Outside the immortal world, the South Extreme Heavenly Venerate and Emperor Shao were still resisting the black mist. The South Extreme Heavenly Venerate asked in a low voice, why aren't the other sages here yet? Emperor Shao frowned. I'm not sure. Qiu Shilai went to find Hanju for help. At the mention of Hanju, the anxious expression on the South Extreme Heavenly Venerate's face softened. After experiencing the Heavenly Devil calamity, Hanju was the strongest in the South Extreme Heavenly Venerate's heart. If Hanju took action, this calamity should be resolved. At the same time, Qiu Shilai and Li Mui were also waiting. Time passed. Several days later, Hanju had yet to appear. Qiu Shilai and Li Mui panicked. Was Hanju this cowardly? Chapter 574 Killing a Sage and Capturing Another. Chapter 574 Killing a Sage and Capturing Another. Hanju didn't think about Li Mui and Qiu Shilai's mental fluctuations. He focused on cultivating. Qiu Shilai didn't dare to visit his dreams anymore, afraid that he would expose himself if he was too eager. A year later, Qiu Shilai couldn't help but visit Hanju in his dreams again. In the end, he was ignored. At this moment, he realized that his plan had failed. Hanju was definitely terrified. Qiu Shilai cursed silently, and had no choice but to let the Heavenly Dao Spirit tell Luo Ho to retreat. Luo Ho seemed to have his own ambitions. He only retreated after several months of stalemate. The sages finally heaved a sigh of relief. Qiu Shilai and Li Mui sensed that something was wrong, and stopped sending dreams to Hanju. After 89 years, Hanju finally ended his cultivation, after being unable to cultivate a new Fiend Celestial Dharma idol. He gained 36 new Fiend Celestial Dharma idols. They were the Common Fiend Celestial, Concentrated Fiend Celestial, Extreme Speed Fiend Celestial, Fantasy Fiend Celestial, Captive Sleep Fiend Celestial, Annihilation Fiend Celestial, Time Event Fiend Celestial, Savagery Fiend Celestial, Thousand Faces Fiend Celestial, Grand Light Fiend Celestial, Dark Numbness Fiend Celestial, Infinite Fiend Celestial, Unbeatable Fiend Celestial, Screech Fiend Celestial, Soul Taker Fiend Celestial, Delusion Fiend Celestial, Strength Fiend Celestial, Inauspicious Fiend Celestial, Immeasurable Fiend Celestial, Heavenly Cycle Fiend Celestial, Chaotic Fiend Celestial, Rotten Flames Fiend Celestial, Plague Fiend Celestial, Emperor Fiend Celestial, Emperor Fiend Celestial, Ultimate Pain Fiend Celestial, Loyalty Fiend Celestial, Black and White Fiend Celestial, Ancient Fiend Celestial, Future Fiend Celestial, Traversal Fiend Celestial, Tidal Origin Fiend Celestial, Purification Fiend Celestial, Unceasing Fiend Celestial, Confusion Fiend Celestial, and Life Fiend Celestial. During this breakthrough, he had accumulated 50 Fiend Celestials, totaling 174 Fiend Celestial Dharma idols. Hanju originally thought that he would be able to learn more Fiend Celestial Dharma idols during this breakthrough. He didn't expect this. He entered the simulation trial to adapt to the power of these Fiend Celestial Dharma idols. Several months later, he discovered that the strongest was actually the Strength Fiend Celestial. It could break through all techniques with one move. Coupled with the Heavenly Constellation Fiend Celestial, it was extremely violent and could even be described as invincible. Dao Heavenly Devil and Heavenly Venerate Wufa could no longer withstand a single blow from Hanju. His strength soared. Hanju began to nurture the Fiend Celestial Qi in his body, while thinking about how to deal with Qiu Shilai and Li Mui. That's right. He had to punish them. It was easy for him to control these two sages now. Should he use the primordial heavenly prison? Should he just kill him? Hanju was a little hesitant. If he directly killed the two sages, the existence behind them would definitely notice. No, he had to kill one and subdue the other to serve as a warning. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. Otherwise, the other sages would also find trouble with him in the future. Hanju's eyes narrowed. He slowly stood up. The sun and moon yin-yang protection emitted a dazzling divine light. He came to the 33rd heaven and flew straight towards Li Mui's palace. He didn't conceal his aura. His appearance alerted the other sages. Looking at Hanju landing in front of Li Mui's Dao field, the sages were nervous. If he and Li Mui joined forces, they were afraid. Hanju waved his hand and directly broke through the palace door. The array formation of the sage Dao field shattered. Hanju, what are you doing? Li Mui shouted in anger. He pulled out his sword and prepared to fight. Hanju said coldly, I didn't want to kill you. However, since you're plotting against me, don't blame me for being impolite. He directly condensed two chaotic fiend celestial Dharma idols. They were the heavenly constellation fiend celestial and the strength fiend celestial. The two fiend celestial Dharma idols were extremely majestic and had terrifying postures. They waved their right fists together. The punch was domineering. The sage Dao field directly exploded and turned into nothingness. A terrifying wind wreaked havoc in the 33rd heaven. Li Mui raised his sword and used his mystical power to block. However, just as he did it, his body was directly obliterated. The other sages were shocked. They didn't understand why Hanju attacked Li Mui, but they couldn't stand by and watch. What if it was their turn next? Qiu Shilai's expression darkened as he panicked. Could it be that their plan had been exposed? Impossible. Unless Hanju recognized Luoho. Hanju raised his hand and grabbed Li Mui's sage soul. Shocked, Li Mui struggled hard, but he felt a powerful force restraining him, preventing him from escaping. Not only that, but the surrounding space was also imprisoned. He couldn't move at all. Impossible. Li Mui panicked completely. He knew that Hanju was very strong, but he didn't expect him to be so powerful. He even suspected that Hanju was already a freedom sage, or even stronger. Hanju snorted. The black mist that attacked the immortal world previously was not the dark sage at all, but Luoho. Qiu Shilai and Li Mui plotted to trick me out. Today, I'll kill Li Mui as a warning to others, lest you still dare to scheme against me in the future. Just because I don't deal with you doesn't mean that I'm afraid of you. Hanju directly used the Devour Fiend Celestial to devour Li Mui's sage soul, not giving him a chance to revive. The Devour Fiend Celestial could absorb the enemy's soul and body to strengthen himself. However, Hanju had only learned the Dharma idol. After devouring Li Mui, the increase in his cultivation was almost negligible. After Li Mui died, he looked at Qiu Shilai. Moved, Qiu Shilai hurriedly said, I can explain this to you. Hanju, don't forget. I helped you in the previous calamity. Hanju instantly appeared in front of him. Qiu Shilai subconsciously used his mystical power, and golden light burst out from his body. He was like a golden bell, majestic and divine. Boom! Hanju shattered the golden bell with his palm and grabbed Qiu Shilai. The heavenly constellation Fiend Celestial and the strength Fiend Celestial punched out at the same time, crushing Qiu Shilai's body with absolute domineering power. Hanju used the power of the imprisonment Fiend Celestial to suppress Qiu Shilai's sage soul, and then disappeared from the 33rd heaven. The South Extreme Heavenly Venerate, Sect Master Tianju, Emperor Shao Fuxishan, and Heavenly Venerate Wufa were all stunned. They heard Hanju's words clearly. Was the black mist caused by Qiu Shilai and Li Mui? No wonder they said that they wanted to find Hanju. In the end, Hanju didn't attack, and the black mist still dissipated. Apart from Heavenly Venerate Wufa, the other four sages had extremely complicated emotions. They felt lucky but also a chill. No matter what, Qiu Shilai and Li Mui were considered sages of the same batch as them. Inside the Taoist temple, Hanju suppressed Qiu Shilai's soul in the primordial heavenly prison. The other party no longer cared about his face and kept begging for mercy. He didn't have the bearing of a sage at all. Hanju ignored him and patiently waited for the time to pass. After begging for several hours, Qiu Shilai finally calmed down. Since Hanju didn't kill him, he still had hope. Hanju called Zhang Ju in to guard Qiu Shilai's soul to prevent him from escaping. At the same time, the news of Hanju killing 2 sages spread among the major factions in the immortal world. There were not only sages in the 33rd heaven, but also many Dao seekers. There were even disciples of the various major factions in the chaotic city. 13th heaven. Li Daokong and Li Xianao gathered in a hall. Li Xianao smiled bitterly. I didn't expect Master to die, Li Daokong sighed. Li Muyi was the master who raised them, and Hanju was their new master. They couldn't say anything. Master probably did something. Otherwise, sect master wouldn't have attacked in anger. You should know his personality, Li Xianao said helplessly. Li Daokong glanced at him. Although he knew that Li Xianao was telling the truth, and that Hanju was indeed not a bloodthirsty person, this junior brother deliberately spoke for Hanju in such a situation. It was quite disappointing this useless junior only knew how to take sides. Chapter 575 Heavenly Change Kundi. Chapter 575 Heavenly Change. Kundi Master has died, and the human school is leaderless. Senior, the human school has yet to choose the next eldest disciple. This is your chance. Li Xianao seemed to have thought of something as his eyes lit up. Li Daokong snorted. We're no longer disciples of the human school. You are not allowed to attack them, even without your master. Do you think the human school will disperse? Li Xianao frowned. Li Daokong shook his head. Junior, your vision is still too narrow. A Providence sect is not as simple as you think. Otherwise, why would the Buddhist sect and the Jie school always revive and reorganize after scattering? Li Xianao frowned even more. Li Daokong ignored him and walked out of the hall. He faced the east and bowed slightly. He was a pseudo-sage, and had already sensed that Li Mui's karma with him had been severed. This meant that he was really dead. No matter how they had conflicted in the past, without Li Mui, Li Daokong would not be here today. Li Daokong could only bow. He couldn't kill Hanju for Li Mui. When Li Mui hunted him down, only Hanju was willing to take him in the entire immortal world. The world is changing, Li Daokong muttered to himself as he narrowed his eyes. He seemed to see the 33rd heaven in chaos. 2,000 years passed. Primordial heavenly prison has successfully enslaved the target. Qiu Shilai has a favorable impression of you. Current favorability, max. Hanju opened his eyes and smiled in satisfaction. He stared at him. Qiu Shilai seemed to have a dream. He opened his eyes and looked at Hanju. He hurriedly stood up and bowed. Recalling the past, he was filled with guilt. Sorry. For some reason, I actually... Sigh. Hanju smiled. It's all in the past. Is the heavenly Tao spirit still around? In the process of enslaving Qiu Shilai, he also gave him an absolute purification. But it was unknown if he had destroyed the heavenly Tao spirit. Qiu Shilai replied, the heavenly Tao insignia in my body has already been removed, but the heavenly Tao spirit is still there. I have never been able to capture it. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website MyBox Novel. Thanks. Hanju frowned. In that case, the heavenly Tao spirit was still his great enemy. If the heavenly Tao spirit still comes to find you, act according to the situation. Don't directly expose our relationship, Hanju said seriously. Qiu Shilai nodded. Then, Hanju moved him to the 33rd heaven and asked Zhang Ju to leave. Seeing that Qiu Shilai returned to the Tao field, the other sages came looking for him. Hanju let you go. I thought you were dead. Since you're alive, what about Li Mui? TSK, you actually survived. What a pity. Is what Hanju said true? You really found Luo Ho? Facing the sage's questions, Qiu Shilai's expression was calm. He sighed and said, fellow Taoist Li Mui is already dead. It's all my fault for finding him to scheme against Hanju. What Hanju said is true. We indeed found Luo Ho. This is our fault. The reason why Hanju let me go is that I protected his disciple in the previous calamity. I will be grounded and reflect on myself. With that, he turned around and returned to his Dao field. The other sages looked at each other and did not speak for a long time. Was Qiu Shilai giving in? They knew him too well. This was extraordinary. What method did Hanju use? On the other side, a line of words appeared in front of Hanju. Kundi has developed hatred towards you. Current hatred points, 4 stars. Kundi. What a familiar name. Hanju immediately checked his interpersonal relationships. Kundi, great Tao sage, immeasurable emperor, founder of the Buddhist sect. Because you severed his karma with Qiu Shilai, he has developed hatred towards you. Current hatred points, 4 stars. Jade Bodhi was the primordial ancestor of the Buddhist sect, and Kundi was the founder. What was the relationship between the two? Hanju had heard of Kundi on earth before. It was the sect master of the Western world, which was also the Buddhist sect. Those legends should be the projections of the sage's heavens. They might not be true, but there were clues. Hanju didn't panic at all. The Dao Field's array formation had already been raised to the great Dao Sage realm. It could even block the prying of a great Dao Supreme. It was extremely stable. Why didn't Li Muyi's backing develop hatred towards Hanju? Could it be that he was too heartless? Hanju stopped thinking and continued cultivating. He couldn't cultivate in peace for the past 2,000 years. Even with Zhangju around, he was afraid that Qiu Shilai would suddenly escape. He should cultivate well next. Hanju was already addicted to cultivating. If he didn't enter seclusion for a period of time, he would feel uncomfortable all over. Under the Fusang tree, the disciples cultivated separately. Dao Comprehension Sword opened her eyes and complained, "You always rely on brute force." Tu Linger smiled proudly. "I'm from the Magus race. I have the bloodline of the ancestral Magus. Breaking all techniques with brute force is the inheritance of our Magus race." The two women had just experienced a simulation trial when Dao Comprehension Sword was defeated again. Dao Comprehension Sword was about to speak when the Fusang tree suddenly shook violently, startling the disciples under the tree. The Black Hell Chicken asked, "What's wrong with you?" The Fusang tree replied, "The Kiliacosm world I connected to is gone. The spatial tunnel has also closed." The Kiliacosm world was gone? Long Hao asked, "Should I tell Master?" The Black Hell Chicken glared at him and said angrily, "Does the Kiliacosm world belong to Master? Don't disturb Master's cultivation if there's nothing." It looked at the Fusang tree and said, "Has this affected you?" "No. I was just shocked." "Stop making a fuss. I think you're a woman." "What do you mean?" The Black Hell Chicken was about to explain when it suddenly felt the gazes of Li Yao, Dao Comprehension Sword, Tu Linger and Xiao Air. Frightened, it hurriedly shut up. This small incident didn't affect Hanju. Under the white clouds in the sky, the mountains rose and fell. Mountain ranges were like the ridges of dragons crawling on the ground. Some strange mountains and forests were magnificent. Rows of flying beasts circled above the forest, and the roars of ferocious beasts and demon beasts came from time to time. At the top of a straight mountain was a Taoist temple. The Taoist temple was very simple. Colorful flowers were planted beside it. At this moment, a middle-aged man was kneeling in front of the Taoist temple. "Father, the Han family really needs your help. You've never helped us. Do you really want the Han family to be wiped out?" The middle-aged man cried in grievance. The door to the Taoist temple suddenly opened. Han Tua slowly walked out. He was still so young. Compared to the middle-aged man, he was more like a son. Seeing Han Tua come out, the middle-aged man crawled forward excitedly. Han Tua frowned, his eyes filled with disappointment. He was too disappointed in his son. He always came to trouble him. He had traveled the world alone and reached his current realm. Han Tua said, "I'll help you one last time. Choose a disciple from the family, and I'll impart my cultivation technique to him. From now on, I'll leave this world. You can rely on yourselves in the future." Hearing this, the middle-aged man was moved and asked carefully, "Where are you going? Can you bring the Han family along?" Han Tua snorted, "What Han family? You created it for your own selfish desires. You're far inferior to your younger sister. That's all. Don't force me to change my mind." Chapter 576 Birth of the Famous Race. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du. Chapter 576 Birth of the Famous Race. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du. Han Tuo's tone was very dissatisfied. The middle-aged man hurriedly apologized. The father and son chatted for a while more before the middle-aged man left and went back to choose a suitable disciple. Han Tuo looked at his departing figure and sighed. Every time he saw his children, Han Tuo would always think of his late wife. The reason why he came to the mortal world to get married and have children was only to train and for his state of mind to become clearer. His previous wife in the immortal world had died in the hands of the enemy, while the wife of the mortal world had died of old age. Han Tuo had thought that their life would be simple. He didn't expect his children to want to pursue the immortal Tao like him. At first, Han Tuo still had expectations for his children. However, his son had taken a different path and was filled with desire for power. Instead, his daughter had been pursuing the Tao calmly. Han Tuo suddenly thought of his father. What did Han Ju think of him back then? Thinking of Han Ju's words, he was a little confused. Could it be that he was really not a qualified father? Father, if you were still alive, perhaps. Sigh. It's all my fault for not finding the immortality pill for you in time. Han Tuo muttered to himself. He shook his head and stopped thinking about it. After staying in the mortal world for so long, it was time to return. Half a month later, the middle-aged man brought a youth up the mountain. Han Tuo let the youth enter the Taoist temple. The youth knelt on the ground respectfully. Although he was only 13 or 14 years old, his bearing was very stable. For some reason, Han Tuo inexplicably thought of his younger self. He really looked like him. Han Tuo began to teach him the Tao technique. 300 years passed. Han Ju opened his eyes. He had finally relaxed in the past 300 years, and his mood had finally become happy. He stood up and decided to preach the Tao for the hidden sect. It had been thousands of years since he had preached the Tao. It was time. Prepare to listen to the Tao. Han Ju's voice resounded throughout the 100-peak immortal river. All the disciples came out of seclusion. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website MyBox Novel. Thanks. He still preached the great Tao of extreme origin for 100 years. 100 years later, Han Ju stopped preaching and looked down at the 100-peak immortal river. After so many years, some new prodigies still appeared in the hidden sect. Most of the personal disciples also took in disciples. Even the Black Hell Chicken. Han Ju predicted that after 100,000 years, other than the Nether race, at least 5,000 deity realm experts would appear in the hidden sect. If 100 Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals appeared in 10 million years, there should be hope. There might not even be 100 Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals in the entire immortal world, so it could be imagined how powerful the hidden sect would be 10 million years later. However, 10 million years was too long. Han Ju was still charging towards 100,000 years. Sometimes having good potential would also cause trouble, but one would find that time was too slow. After speaking, Han Ju returned to the Taoist temple. He opened the emails and checked them. He didn't read them for a long time, and did not know how his friends were doing. Your good friend Evil Heavenly Emperor was suppressed by your enemy Kundi, and was severely injured. Your son Han Tuo accidentally entered the 9 Nether Purgatory. Your good friend Li Daokong was attacked by your good friend Jiang Dugu. Your good friend Shi Dudao was attacked by your good friend Li Daokong. Your good friend Evil Heavenly Emperor has received guidance from a mysterious mighty figure. His cultivation has increased greatly. Your good friend Jing Tiangong created the Darkness sect. Your good friend Emperor Shao was cursed by a mysterious curse. How could the Evil Heavenly Emperor provoke Kundi? Han Ju was puzzled. Most importantly, the Evil Heavenly Emperor could still survive. Did he hesitate to kill the Evil Heavenly Emperor? He could test the waters. In any case, Kundi was his enemy. Furthermore, it had been hundreds of years since he had enslaved Qiu Shilai. Han Ju continued reading. This was not the first time Jing Tiangong established the Darkness sect. After leaving the Jie school, he seemed to be having a rough time. Han Ju hesitated to directly recruit Jing Tiangong. Forget it. If he needed the identity of the Dark Forbidden Lord in the future, he could not expose it in advance. Han Ju looked down. Most of his good friends outside began to become active. The former immortal world had completely returned. After closing the emails, Hanju extended his sage sense and observed the entire immortal world. The 3 regions near the 100-peak immortal river were already densely covered in living beings. Most of the living beings were in the form of humans after transforming. However, the humans lived very hard in the immortal world and had already become a small race. They could only survive in a region divided by the heavenly race. Apart from the demons, the strongest race in the current immortal world should be the famous race. They were acting like the demons. They proclaimed that all living beings in the world with a certain amount of fame could enter the famous race. The demons were now led by the heavenly race and did not dare to anger them. They were fighting with the famous race for the throne. From then on, the dragon race had risen again. Perhaps because of the sage position, more and more mighty figures traveled the world and spread their Tao techniques. More than 100 Providence sects were born. Almost every Providence sect had a divine realm mighty figure, or even a pseudo-sage. Hanju observed for several hours before retracting his gaze. He looked at the mortal world that Han Tua had stayed in. The Han family that Han Tua had left behind had already migrated, and were still being hunted down. It was a little desolate. This brat is really heartless. He's really like his father, Hanju muttered to himself. Although the Han family's situation was tragic, it was not to the extent of being wiped out. There were many disciples in the family whose potential surpassed mortals, but they were too young and did not have time to grow. With a thought, Hanju moved the Han family to a safe forest and isolated them from the world. He hoped that they wouldn't cause trouble and cultivated in peace. Then he closed his eyes and continued cultivating outside the 33rd heaven. Qiushilai, Heavenly Venerate Wufa, South Extreme Heavenly Venerate Fuxishan, Sect Master Tianju, Emperor Shao, and Empress Huta gathered in Li Mui's Dao field. The sages were nervous as they looked at a light hole floating in the air. Lightning silently flickered, dazzling and strange. Empress Huta couldn't help but ask, "Who will come?" Sect Master Tianju said calmly, "I'm not sure. If the Grand Supreme Sage didn't take in a new disciple in the deity realm of the ruins of End, that senior should have come." Empress Huta frowned. The South Extreme Heavenly Venerate looked at Qiushilai and asked, "Why are you so calm? Li Mui died because of you. If he had no intention, how could he agree to my plan? I can't force him." Qiushilai shook his head. Sect Master Tianju snorted. The other sages also could not stand Qiushilai. This fellow was really shameless. At this moment, a vast pressure spread out from the cave. A white-haired gray-robed elder walked out. He held a horsetail whisk, and a long sword that emitted a green light floated behind him. At the end of the sword hilt was a small lotus throne. Apart from Empress Hutu and Fuxishan, the other sages bowed and said in unison, "Greetings, Heavenly Venerate Xian Du." Heavenly Venerate Xian Du's expression was indifferent as he said, "I already know about the Heavenly Tao's situation. The Grand Supreme Sage asked me to control the human school. I hope that you won't make things difficult for the human school in the future." "Of course," the sages replied again. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du looked at Qiushilai and asked, "Why did you sever your karma with that person?" Qiushilai replied, "I was caught by Hanju. I had no choice. My heart is still with the Buddhist sect." Heavenly Venerate Xian Du's eyes suddenly filled with deep meaning, as if he was seeing through him. Chapter 577 70,000 Years Old, Heaven Opening Acts. Chapter 577 70,000 Years Old, Heaven Opening Acts. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du retracted his gaze and faced the sages. He said slowly, "I have my own conclusion regarding Li Mui's death. The most important thing now is to stabilize the Heavenly Tao's providence. Recently, the providence has been in chaos. Order needs to be consolidated. No more trouble is allowed for the time being." The sages heaved a sigh of relief. This suited their intentions. They didn't want to fight with Hanju. They even felt that Hanju was not weaker than Heavenly Venerate Xian Du. The outcome also proved this. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du did not dare to compete with him. Then, Heavenly Venerate Xian Du stopped being polite and raised his hand to signal the sages to leave. After the sages left, the South Extreme Heavenly Venerate found Empress Hutu and said, "Your karma with Hanju is the deepest. What do you think he feels towards us?" The other sages also surrounded him. Qiushilai and Heavenly Venerate Wufa were secretly vigilant. If Empress Hutu dared to be disrespectful to Hanju, they would scheme against her. After experiencing the primordial heavenly prison, they were absolutely loyal to Hanju, but they wouldn't lose their personality, and thinking this change was very terrifying. Even sages couldn't realize this. Empress Hutu replied, "How would I know? However, if you don't target him, he shouldn't care about you. This child has the great Tao in his heart, and doesn't have time to scheme against others. You have also figured out Li Mui's death. If it were you, what would you do?" Thinking of something, she said meaningfully, "Hanju can see through Qiushilai and Li Mui's schemes. It's worth thinking about. His mystical power is far beyond ours." With that said, Empress Hutu vanished. The sages looked at each other. 690 years later, Hanju opened his eyes, and lines of words appeared in front of him. "Detected that you are 70,000 years old, and your life has taken another step forward. You have the following choices. 1. Go to the deity realm of the ruins of End immediately, and unify the great Tao. You can obtain a sage-level Tao field guard, a great Tao fragment, a supreme treasure, and a mystical power inheritance. 2. Cultivate in a low-profile manner, and stay away from conflict. Maintain your original intention. You can obtain a great Tao fragment, a mystical power inheritance, and a supreme treasure." Hanju cursed silently. The dog system was luring him again. He directly chose the second option. You chose to cultivate in a low-profile manner, and obtained a great Tao fragment, a mystical power inheritance, and a supreme treasure. Congratulations on obtaining the mystical power Dharma Idol Fusion Technique. Dharma Idol Fusion Technique. Special mystical power. You can fuse the Dharma Idol you cast into the main body, and fuse the two powers into one. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. Congratulations on obtaining the Chaotic Supreme Treasure. Heaven Opening Axe. Heaven Opening Axe. Chaotic Supreme Treasure. One of the birth Dharma treasures of the chaotic fiend celestial Pangu. It has the power to devour the providence of the chaotic fiend celestials, and can split the world. Heaven Opening Axe. Hanju's eyes widened. What level was a chaotic supreme treasure? In Hanju's understanding, Dharma treasures were divided into numinous treasures and supreme treasures, according to the major realms. Zenith Heaven Numinous Treasure, Zenith Heaven Supreme Treasure, Heavenly Tao Numinous Treasure, Heavenly Tao Supreme Treasure, Freedom Numinous Treasure, Freedom Supreme Treasure. Could the chaotic supreme treasure be higher than the freedom realm? Hanju felt dizzy from the immense happiness. Was this an invincible cheat? On second thought, Panga did not only have the Heaven Opening Axe, and the Tao Ancestor also had the Jade Slip of Creation. If they had such a supreme treasure before attaining the Tao, wouldn't it be even more of a cheat? Hanju was curious and asked, "System, how did you collect these supreme treasures? Could it be that the system was formed by the Tao Ancestor?" Hanju couldn't help but suspect the system's origin. The system is only a support. You need to be strong enough to understand the system's origin. The system doesn't know its own origin currently. The system's answer was still so firm and emotionless. However, this made Hanju relax. It would be terrifying if the system had its own will. Of course, the system might be pretending now, but Hanju chose to believe it. If not for it, he wouldn't be here today. In any case, he had been cultivating in peace. It was fine as long as the system did not lure him out. Apart from the Heaven Opening Axe, the Dharma Idol Fusion Technique was also very strong. It was unknown how many Dharma idols he could fuse at the same time. This technique was completely suitable for the grand unity aspect. Its level was immeasurable. The stronger the Dharma Idol mystical power, the stronger it was. Hanju first took out the Heaven Opening Axe, and prepared to make it recognize him as its owner. The Heaven Opening Axe was larger than his entire body. The body of the axe was vast, and tiny figures were carved on it. Their postures were different, as if they were in a chaotic battle. Holding the heaven-opening axe, Hanju felt that it was heavy and almost couldn't hold it steady. He was a primordial chaos zenith heaven golden immortal, but he couldn't hold it steady. As expected of a chaotic supreme treasure, Hanju began to make it recognize him as its owner. After a year, the heaven-opening axe finally recognized him as its owner. It was even harder than the killing Dao token. Hanju continued to inherit the Dharma idol fusion technique. Several days later, he grasped this technique and began the simulation trial. He directly fused with the heavenly constellation Fiend Celestial Dharma idol and wielded the heaven-opening axe. He killed Heavenly Venerate Wuxia with one strike. He began the trial again. This time, he fused with the heavenly constellation Fiend Celestial and the strength Fiend Celestial. His strength increased again, and he easily killed Heavenly Venerate Wuxia. Hanju kept trying. He discovered that fusing with the Fiend Celestial Dharma idol was not the result of completely overlapping. Most of the chaotic Fiend Celestial's powers were fundamentally different. The Dharma idol fusion technique only fused the advantages. After fusing with the same type of Fiend Celestial power, it was not the effect of 1 + 1 = 2. For example, the heavenly constellation Fiend Celestial and the strength Fiend Celestial combined were only equivalent to 1 + 1 = 1. 5. But this was already not bad. Hanju was very satisfied. He could at most fuse with 5 Fiend Celestial Dharma idols and master the power of these Fiend Celestials. Any more in his body wouldn't be able to withstand it. Hanju continued to enjoy the battle. He wanted to completely master the Dharma idol fusion technique and try the effect of fusing different Fiend Celestial Dharma idols together. In a mysterious space, figures that shone with different lights appeared out of thin air. They all looked in the same direction. It was a point of light that looked like stars changing in the darkness. This great Tao is becoming stronger again. This growth speed is extraordinary. Is it derived from nature or is it an own great Tao? I'm not sure. I can't see through it. Observe again. I keep feeling that this great Tao will affect the chaos. I think so too. These figures discussed in low voices. After a while they vanished again. The point of light in the darkness still shone lonely as it continued to strengthen itself. Time passed quickly. 834 years passed. Hanju, who was cultivating, suddenly heard a cry. It didn't come from the 100-peak immortal river, but from the distant mortal world. Ancestor Han Tua, I beg you to show yourself. Our Han family is about to be wiped out. Can you really bear to sit by and watch? Why can other families invite immortals from the upper world? Our Han family has an immortal god ancestor, but he ignores us? Why? Why? Our Han family has been wandering for more than 1,000 years, struggling at death's door. Why won't the heavens spare us? The voice was filled with despair. Hanju looked over and saw that in a barren mountain range, a youth was kneeling on the ground and roaring at the sky. Tears kept falling. Many corpses could be seen lying around him. Hanju could deduce at a glance that those corpses were the children of the Han family. He looked at Han Tua again. At this moment, Han Tua was imprisoned in the 9 nether purgatory and was enduring the burning of the 9 nether flame. He was in extreme pain. Chapter 578 Ancestor's Ancestor, Mysterious Attack. Chapter 578 Ancestor's Ancestor. Mysterious Attack. Hanju didn't pity or care about Han Tuo's encounter. It was fine as long as this kid didn't die. In life, how could there be no danger or tribulation? Hanju calculated. No sage was plotting against Han Tua behind his back. However, he couldn't escape this predicament for the time being. Hanju placed his gaze on the young man from the Han family who was crying. Originally, he didn't care about him. The reason why he went to check on him was mainly that this kid looked too similar to him. Yes, similar. This youth looked to be 16 or 17 years old, and was extremely handsome. Hanju had also used a spell to look at his own face, and knew his appearance. This kid was simply made from the same mold as him. He was even more like Hanju than Han Tua. Of course, compared to Hanju, he was still inferior. Because of his similar looks, Hanju liked this kid. What was this? Inherited genes? How many generations apart was he? In the wilderness, thunderclouds filled the sky. Han Yu knelt in front of his parents' corpses. He had already cried until his throat was hoarse. The reason he cried was not that he was afraid, but because he was angry. He was angry that his ancestor had left him alone. He was angry that he was too weak and angry that the heavens were unfair. After his emotions dissipated, Han Yu looked at the corpses on the ground and fell silent. A red light rose in the sky like fireworks. It was the enemy's spell signal. He had been discovered. 5 minutes ago, he had rushed here. It was already like this. The enemy had already left. Now he had returned to kill him. He wanted to eradicate the Han family. Han Yu was filled with anger, and his eyes became determined. If this is my Han family's fate, I will die with them. Han Yu muttered to himself, and slowly closed his eyes. Swish! A piercing sound could be heard as Han Yu's chest was pierced by a sharp sword. Blood splattered on the corpse beside him. Cultivators flew over on their swords. Their auras were like a rainbow as they quickly surrounded him. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. The blue-robed man in the lead looked down at Han Yu and said, You should be the son of the Han family, Han Yu. You're indeed talented. Unfortunate. If you weren't a disciple of the Han family, I could still take you in as a son-in-law. You must die today. The grudge between our families should end here. Clang, the blue-robed man pulled out a soft sword from his sleeve. The blade quickly burned with flames, illuminating the dark world that seemed like night. Han Yu grabbed the sword with his bare hand and pulled it out. Boom! The black clouds churned even more violently as thunder rumbled. He still wants to resist? TSK. The Han family has always claimed that they have an immortal god ancestor. They are inferior to our Wang family's ancestor. At the very least, our Wang family's ancestor appeared and taught our disciples Dao techniques. The Han family deserved what happened to them today. When they were strong back then, they also wiped us out. Hurry up and kill him. What are you afraid of? Can anyone save him now? The cultivators discussed. Some urged, some cursed, and some mocked. The blue-robed man waved his sword down. The blade transformed into firebirds that were dozens of feet wide. They swooped down at Han Yu, as if they wanted to burn all the corpses in the area. Han Yu looked calmly at the firebirds that filled the sky. He had already accepted the outcome of the Han family being wiped out. Under his gaze, the dozens of firebirds suddenly dissipated. The thunderclouds in the sky parted and wisps of sunlight shone on Han Yu. In an instant, Han Yu felt as if a lifetime had passed. Who said that the Han family's ancestor is inferior to your Wang family's ancestor? A cold snort sounded. The Wang family cultivators felt as if they were struck by lightning. Their entire bodies trembled, their eyes losing color. Han Yu's pupils slowly widened. Under his gaze, the Wang family cultivators turned to dust. Han Ju attacked. Killing these mortals involved only a thought. However, he still showed mercy and let their souls fall into the cycle of reincarnation without dissipating. Han Ju had already attained the Tao. Only existences stronger than him could make him worry. He wouldn't feel guilty about killing some mortals. Han Yu came back to his senses and asked excitedly, Is it Ancestor Han Tua? Ancestor appeared. Han Ju's voice sounded, Han Tua? I'm tens of thousands of years older than him. He didn't directly reveal his identity. If Han Tua knew, he would think that he was an ancestor. In Han Tuo's understanding, Han Ju should have parents. There must be other Han family members above. Han Yu was stunned. In the family tree, Han Tua was the father of the creator, and was already the ancestor with the highest seniority. Unexpectedly, many years later, Han Yu mentioned this experience to his descendants with a sigh. That day, he asked his ancestor for help. The ancestor did not reply, but the ancestor's ancestor came to the rescue. Inside the Taoist temple, Han Ju ignored Han Yu's question. It was already good enough that he could save him. He wouldn't do anything for him anymore. Unless Han Yu displayed a temperament that satisfied him, Han Ju's good impression of him would only stop at his physical appearance. He continued to cultivate. A day in the immortal world and a year in the mortal world did not mean a difference in time, but life experiences. To cultivators, a year was nothing. To mortals, a year was enough to change their lives. In the blink of an eye, 1,000 years passed. After Hanju's cultivation ended, his cultivation improved again. Although it was not obvious, he could only break through after many years. He first observed Han Tua. This kid had already rushed out of the 9 nether purgatory and returned to the immortal world. His cultivation had increased greatly and was already very close to the deity realm. He looked at Hanyu again and discovered that he was actually not dead yet. He was already a Mahayana cultivator now. Although Hanyu was still alive, the Han family was already gone. Hanyu didn't create a new family. Instead, he cultivated diligently, not to mention having children. He didn't even have a Tao companion. This kid was very sensible. Hanju only took a look. Since the two of them were not in danger, he couldn't be bothered to interfere. Hanju started to check his emails. Soon, an email attracted his attention. Your good friend Qiushilai was attacked by a mysterious mighty figure and was severely injured. Why was Qiushilai severely injured? He looked up and saw that Qiushilai was still in his Tao field. All these years, Hanju didn't feel any battle fluctuations. What happened? Who attacked Qiushilai? Hanju had no choice but to use the derivation function. 10 billion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Immediately after, a figure appeared in Hanju's mind. Heavenly Venerate Xiandu. Perfected Heavenly Tao Sage, eldest disciple of the human school, immeasurable emperor, ancestor of the human race. Heavenly Venerate Xiandu. Could it be the great Taoist Master Xian, Du in the investiture of the gods? Hanju had already caught a powerful aura in Li Mui's Tao field. It was not weaker than Heavenly Venerate Wufa, but it was not much stronger. Why did Heavenly Venerate Xiandu attack Qiushilai? Hanju didn't continue to use the derivation function, but visited Qiushilai in his dreams. The reason why he checked just now was to understand the other party's cultivation. In the dream, Qiushilai opened his eyes and saw that it was Hanju. He hurriedly stood up and bowed. Hanju asked, "Why did Heavenly Venerate Xiandu attack you?" Stunned, Qiushilai sighed. "You're really remarkable. You even know this. It's not an attack. It's just a spar. He used a special mystical power to spar with me and didn't disturb the heavenly Tao." Chapter 579 Insta-killing Heavenly Venerate Xiandu, Preaching the Tao to the Heavens. Chapter 579 Insta-killing Heavenly Venerate Xiandu, Preaching the Tao to the Heavens. What mystical power? Hanju asked. To be able to severely injure Qiushilai without causing a commotion. This mystical power was something what a good method of ambush. He had to figure it out. Qiushilai replied, "I'm not sure either. This mystical power is similar to a dream, but it's not a dream. It will pull me into another space and attack me. All the damage I suffer will be completely transmitted to my body and soul." Hanju raised his eyebrows. "In that space, can you resist?" "Yes, but there will be some restrictions." "Did Heavenly Venerate Xiandu say anything to you?" "He didn't say anything. He didn't seem to want to provoke you, so he didn't mention you." "Yes, report to me if anything happens." "Understood." Hanju left the dream. He opened his eyes and frowned. He hesitated for a moment before suddenly jumping out of the 100-peak immortal river and arriving at the 33rd heaven. In front of Li Mui's Tao field, he quickly used the simulation trial to copy Heavenly Venerate Xiandu's cultivation. "Why are you here, fellow Taoist?" Heavenly Venerate Xiandu's voice floated out, his tone calm. Hanju disappeared after saying, "I'm just passing by. I won't disturb your cultivation." Heavenly Venerate Xiandu was originally very vigilant, but Hanju calling him senior softened his expression. He didn't like Li Mui's hypocrisy. After understanding the situation, he felt that Li Mui deserved it. However, when Hanju dealt with the human school, he subconsciously treated him as an enemy. Now, it seemed that Hanju might not be an enemy. But was this fellow really just passing by? Impossible. Could it be that he checked my cultivation level and realized that he was no match for me? So he retreated? Heavenly Venerate Xiandu frowned as he thought that it was very likely. He hoped that this fellow could appreciate it. Heavenly Venerate Xian, Du originally did not want to come to the Heavenly Tao. He wanted to spend more time on cultivation. On the other side, if you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website MyBox Novel. Thanks. Han Ju returned to the Taoist temple and started the simulation trial to challenge Heavenly Venerate Xian Du alone. After 10 breaths of time, he finally killed the other party. Han Ju showed a frown. This fellow's mystical power was impressive. He could actually extract his consciousness and pull it into another space. Fortunately, Han Ju used the power of the shattering fiend celestial to directly shatter that mysterious space. He held the heaven-opening axe and killed Heavenly Venerate Xian Du in one strike. No, 10 breaths were too long. If Heavenly Venerate Xian Du still had help, Han Ju's true body might be killed. Han Ju continued the simulation trial and looked for a way to insta-kill the Heavenly Venerate. Heavenly Venerate Xian Du was worthy of being a perfected Heavenly Tao sage. He was indeed powerful. Han Ju even suspected that his cultivation level had been suppressed, just like how Heavenly Venerate Wuxia was a freedom sage. In order to enter the Heavenly Tao, he had suppressed his cultivation to the Heavenly Tao sage. No matter what, Heavenly Venerate Xian Du was a Heavenly Tao sage now. After 7 simulation trials, Han Ju finally found a way. In the beginning, he would first use the Dharma Idol fusion technique to fuse with the Guardian Fiend Celestial and the Barrier Fiend Celestial. He would directly isolate Heavenly Venerate Xian Du's mysterious mystical power and insta-kill him. As a sage, he could do many things in an instant. After finding a way to insta-kill the Heavenly Venerate, Han Ju felt refreshed and relaxed. He didn't plan to deal with Heavenly Venerate Xian Du as long as this fellow did not provoke him. Killing Heavenly Venerate Xian Du would definitely attract stronger existences, and sooner or later, terrifying mighty figures would come. Han Ju didn't want to kill the enemy and level up. It was too tiring. He was about to cultivate when Han Zuetian came to visit. He had already figured out Han Ju's seclusion pattern. Most of the time, he would end his seclusion once every 1,000 years. Han Ju let him in. Just like before, he came to report the living beings whose potential had reached the limit. This time, there were 8,000 immortal emperors, and their cultivation couldn't increase anymore. Reaching the emperor realm in tens of thousands of years, one seemed to have outstanding potential, but they had to consider the spirit qi in the Tao field and Han Ju's lecture from time to time. Grandmaster, are we still letting them reinforce the heavenly race this time? Han Zuetian asked. Han Ju asked, what do you think? Since this kid asked, he definitely had other intentions. Han Zuetian said, I learned from the myriad worlds projection that the heavenly race has already dominated the immortal world and no longer needs the hidden sect's support. If we help the heavenly race become stronger, I'm afraid it won't be a good thing. The heavenly race is too powerful and will encounter the combined resistance of other factions. In addition, the heavenly race might become arrogant internally. The in-name disciples we send might also change their minds. Han Ju was amused. This kid had always been in the hidden sect, but he could see through people's hearts. Could it be his talent? Then what do you think? Like the initial batch of in-name disciples, we will send them to hide in various worlds. In addition, we can choose a leader and pull him into the myriad worlds projection so that we can communicate with him at any time. Yes, you can arrange it. Thank you, Grandmaster. Han Zuetian was pleasantly surprised and hurriedly thanked him. Han Ju's words were equivalent to raising his status. Compared to the other disciples who only knew how to cultivate diligently, he could do things for Han Ju and was naturally more confident. Several days later, the 8,000 immortal emperors each chose 8 leaders and entered the personal disciples' tutelage. They could be considered to have officially become the personal disciples of the hidden sect. Han Ju then pulled them into the myriad worlds projection and divided them into 8 batches. They were sent by the Fusang tree to different worlds. At this point, the hidden sect already had 9 branches outside the heavenly Tao. The batch of immortal emperors who left the earliest had already taken root and even become a powerful sect. Their providence was flourishing the Fusang tree had also connected to some mortal worlds recently, but Hanju felt that there was no point in exploring them. The worlds outside the heavenly Tao were created by sages, pseudo-sages, and zenith heaven. The world's strength was related to the cultivation of the creator. There were also worlds that were naturally formed, but they were far inferior to the heavenly Tao. So far, Hanju didn't know how many worlds were hidden outside the heavenly Tao. It was always good to know more. After arranging all of this, Hanju began to cultivate in seclusion again. He had to reach the perfected primordial chaos zenith heaven golden immortal realm by the time he reached 100,000 years of age. After that, he could look forward to the freedom sage realm, outside the 33rd heaven great ultimate hall. Unlike the other sage Tao fields, the surroundings of the great ultimate hall were filled with mist. It was faintly discernible and very mysterious. In the hall, Ancestor Shitian, 7 Tao sage, Jade Bodhi and Dijuan gathered again. Dijuan teased, "I'll accept your great Tao nirvana. Perhaps I'll have a few more sages who can attain the Tao through strength." 7 Tao sage snorted, "Hanju is indeed not simple. I suspect that he has the support of a mighty figure." Ancestor Shitian shook his head. "It's fine as long as he's not a primordial fiend celestial." Jade Bodhi chuckled. 7 Tao sage asked, "How do you know that?" Jade Bodhi said, "The primordial fiend celestial will bring calamity to the chaos. The Tao ancestor has deduced that the primordial fiend celestial will rise by stepping on the chaotic fiend celestial. Hanju has always been in seclusion and is always forced to make a move. He's nothing like the primordial fiend celestial. I feel that he's more like a chaotic fiend celestial. Didn't fellow Taoist Shitian say that he can use chaotic fiend celestial dharma idols?" 7 Tao sage was silent. Ancestor Shitian said, "Recently, those fellows from the dark forbidden zone have been restless. All of you should stay away from them and protect the deity realm of the ruins of End." Jade Bodhi, you have to pay more attention to the dark forbidden zone's regulation. Don't always stare at the immortal world and the deity realm of the ruins of End. The Buddhist sect is already powerful enough. There's no need to scheme anymore. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.